Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Today, folks, is not going to be an easy show, but it's going to be an informative show, and it's going to be a very interesting show. We're going to deal with a subject today that, although is entirely intriguing, it is a difficult one. We're going to talk about today about child sexual abuse. We're going to talk about the murder of children. But there's a reason we have to. We have to bring this out into the light, folks, because it sits in the dark for way too long. And we don't keep our eyes out the way we should in this case and point this out to proper authorities the way we should. The man I have on today has a wonderful new book out there that I encourage you all to get a copy of, to read, to absorb, and to become more vigilant in your own communities and help out. This man has gone above and beyond to do God's work. And he's put a wonderful new book out there called Obsessed, A Survivor's Quest to Find Justice for the Lost Boys of New England. David McGrath is a true crime author and private investigator. As a victim of childhood sexual abuse himself, McGrath focuses solely on investigating crimes against children and corruption. McGrath has reported for years on the Catholic Church abuse scandal and missing children in New England. He's a combat veteran of the war in Afghanistan and now works for one of the largest private investigation firms in the country. He's been published in Law Enforcement Today and townhall.com and runs a weekly true crime column on Substack. Dave lives south of Boston with his two sons and a beagle. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome in for the first time to True Crime Tuesday. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome in David McGrath. Dave, welcome into True Crime Tuesday.
Tim, thanks so much. That was the best introduction a guy could ask for. I really appreciate that. I'll try and live up to it. I'm not too sure I could do that. So,
you will, my friend, by far. First of all, thank you so much for your service in Afghanistan. It's a heartfelt thank you. It's not a passing thank you. It's a heartfelt thank you for.
Yeah. Anytime someone says that to me, I just say, best time of my life. Wouldn't trade it for the world, and but very happy to. It's one. Just 2 seconds on that. It's just, unfortunately, I see with too many veterans that it's very hard for them to move on from that. And I would encourage all veterans listening to this to find something else to do after your service that gives you as much pleasure or as much feeling of that you're doing something good with the world. And that's what my writing is really all about, Tim. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Man, you've been in a lot of traumatic situations, my friend, throughout your entire life. And first of all, I just want to ask you this first opening volley, and that's this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you continue to survive from traumatic situation to traumatic situation? Because to me, it seems like any ordinary person would find a place in there to fall apart and not want to come back from it.
Yeah, well, that's man, I'm not too sure I'm smart enough or have enough command of the English language to really answer that sufficiently for you or your audience. I would probably just say things got a lot better for me once I met my wife, and we've been married for 10 years, going up on 11 here next May. And I have two little boys, 11 and 6 years old. And, your kids are not going to take excuses for why their dad is not doing well and he can't be a great father or a good provider or anything like that. My kids are not going to buy that, or any kids. You can't just say to them, hey, daddy had it rough when he was a kid. He's probably not going to be around all the time. He's going to fall apart a lot. Money's going to be hard to come by because he really can't keep a job. Kids are not going to accept that. So that's really what keeps me on the straight and narrow. You need a strong partner. Obviously, I have that in my wife. And, your kids will keep you grounded, as all parents know. They'll make you forget about a lot of things and just you really start focusing on their lives and making them better, and you forget about your own stuff. And I'll tell you, the writing of this and the weekly columns that I do and other projects that I do are really cathartic. When talking about this book right now and seeing it out there and people emailing me from all over the globe to discuss their trauma with me, that's the best chicken soup I could have. So have things always been good? No, I probably spent the first my 20s and my 30s were really rough, turbulent times for me. I made a lot of mistakes. I had problems with all sorts of things. I'm not saying that, things are 100% better as I enter my 40s now. No, I just find like more healthy ways to deal with everything that's gone on in the past 4 decades of my life, and find better people to surround myself with. And, I know that sounds like, professional speak, and that's exactly what your psychologist would tell you. But I think that's, really true. You got to find something to tether yourself to, and that's really what my writing does for me. It's more for me than anybody, Tim.
Well, it seems like you're doing more for everybody than just writing, Dave. I mean, honestly, it seems like you're taking on a world cause here that is bettering society, and that is getting scum off the street. Let's face it. Let's call it what it is, right? Let's call it
Yeah.
what it is.
Well, at least, I don't have the ability, unfortunately, to get them off the street, but certainly sunlight is the best, um, whatever that term is, bringing things to light is the best way to do it. And yeah. And, unfortunately, in this day and age, it's still like one of those topics that's super taboo about, how many sexual predators that prey on children are active in the world today. And specifically to this book, the 1970s in New England was a hotbed for criminal activity involving the production of child pornography and the dissemination of it, specifically in Providence, Rhode Island, and the New England region. And unfortunately, tragically, many young boys went missing in the production of that, Tim.
Dave, you talk about sunlight being the best disinfectant. When you look at where we are at today in 2025, as opposed to where we were at in the 1960s, 1970s, and we'll get into obsessed and a little bit about that here in a moment. I like to look at, like, we have neighborhood forums now, neighborhood websites where everybody is speaking. Everybody is talking about, hey, you know what? There's a level 3 sex offender that moved in 3 blocks down, and there's notifications now when, and every movement now. I mean, information is abound everywhere as to the movements of certain people, of certain serial offenders. Yet that doesn't quite seem to be enough. The crimes keep happening.
Right.
What is it about today's society? I know this is a little bit of a difficult question here, Dave, but what is it about today's society where we still have one eye off the ball and it's still happening?
Yeah, we've got probably both eyes off the ball, especially when there's, and this is going to be a nonpartisan thing to say. So anybody who knows me knows that I am a libertarian at heart, and I have mostly no interest in either political party in this country. But I see politicians stand on the stump for a lot of things that have really zero effect on the way Americans' lives go on a day-to-day basis. And I never see any politicians stand on the stump to talk about the sexual abuse, the child trafficking, the amount of child pornography arrests that are made, the amount of raids that go on a daily basis, that are, there was just 25 children in the state of Arkansas. Arkansas State Police raided a home and took out 25 kids who were being trafficked, and mostly coming over our southern border. And again, this is a nonpartisan thing to say. There's a movement in the state of Oregon specifically, Tim, where to normalize to normalize pedophiles, basically. Hey, they were born this way, which they certainly were. I've made that argument. They are definitely born that way. It is not a nature versus nurture thing. There's many pedophiles that I profile in this book who I've been in their childhood homes. I know what their family life was like. It was normal. They were born this way. And there's a huge movement now to make that normal, to even get rid of the word pedophile and call them minor attracted people. That's not normal. And yes, the state of Oregon, there's been legislature on this. It's gone to votes. And there's very powerful people who are involved in, I talk about one story in the book, Tim, and you may or may not know it.
Yeah.
About a Revere.
Cover to cover. Yep.
Okay. There was a case in Revere in 1977 in a north of Boston town. excuse me, Tim, I apologize.
Oh,
North of Boston, the town of Revere, Massachusetts. It's a beach town just outside of Logan Airport in Boston, where there was a sex ring broken up. There was a group of neighborhood people who were noticing a bunch of young boys outside, drinking alcohol late at night. And what had happened was, basically the FBI and Massachusetts State Police raided this house on 242 Mountain Ave in Revere and taken out a bunch of boys. And they had taken out a man named Richard Peluso, who was an advertising executive who had taken over his father's company, which was very famous in the 1950s and 60s, called Peluso Advertising. And what this man was doing was he was taking a bunch of underprivileged kids. I've seen the court documents. These kids lived on the fringes of society. They were orphans. They were kids who were mixed up in the system, and Peluso was taking and pimping them out. And to very powerful men, the heads of, exclusive boarding schools, the cancer doctors at Mass General Hospital and Boston City Hospital. And when in his interview, where I printed, the interview with police, where his first interrogation, the police had asked him, and I'll loop this back to present day here in a second. The police had asked him, who else is involved? We found your address book, but we know, and the prosecutor in the case said that was just the tip of the iceberg of the men that were involved and basically paying to have sex with these underage boys. And he said that if I ever divulge any more names, I'll have a hit put out on me. These are very important people. So you loop that back to present day, you're never going to have full reform on this sort of behavior unless the powerful people who are engaging in it also go down for it. And it was true in 1977 in Revere when people got slaps on the wrist for that case, and it's true in 2025, Tim.
Well, David, you also go through in the book, and I find it fascinating that you go through how those roots in Revere actually start in certain people actually start NAMBLA, which is the National Association of Man-Boy Love.
Yes.
And how I forget what the reverend's name is, but how that all attaches to these people and how they, from that little corner of the world, how they started this whole movement and got that started. And in that whole normalization of that, which again, when you look at how scarring that is, how I'm trying to find words here, Dave, and how deep I can only use deeply scarring is the word that I come up with.
Yeah, sure.
You deeply psychologically scarring, horrific. I can't see how you could co-sign on that to make that or normalize that. I can't wrap my head around it.
And it was attempted to be normalized, as you mentioned, with the NAMBLA initiative that started in 1978. So a lot of people in your audience, I'm sure, are listening to this who have heard of NAMBLA. They were voted the most hated group in America by Time magazine at one point in the 1980s. There was an FBI agent, a man named Robert Hamer, who had infiltrated the group. We spoke for the book. He wrote his own book called The Last Undercover. I'm sure everybody has heard of it. They still operate a website and a message board called nambla.org, where they basically make arguments for why men should be able to have sex with underage boys. I mean, there's just no easy way to say it. And that group was started in a direct response to the 1977 Revere sex ring. So Richard Peluso gets 30 years for his role in the ring. And a prominent local gay journalist named David Brill began to write pieces in different publications all over the country, some local, some national, about how the Revere case was a witch hunt. There were no real victims, and basically the Mass State Police and FBI and Revere Police were targeting gay men and making up stories about them. And that began to take hold. So other gay men got a hold of that. They staged a large demonstration in Bridgewater, where there's a treatment center in the town of Bridgewater, south of Boston, where most of the Massachusetts high-level sex offenders go. A, for security, B, for psychological help. These men go to hospitals, not prisons, in a lot of cases. and they basically, did a large stand-in. And that very day is when a pedophile priest by the name of Paul Shanley and 21 others got together and created this NAMBLA group that began to, in the shortest way possible, organize across the country. They had their original PO box was based in Kenmore Station, which is right off Fenway Park. Very, very famous landmark. Everybody gets off there to get to go to Fenway. And they had chapters all over the country and internationally, New York, San Francisco, Europe. And they got together, and there was a lot of famous members, including a man by the name of David Thorstad, whose papers still are memorialized at the University of Minnesota. This was a man who was a pedophile who made arguments to that men should be able to have sex with young boys, age of consent laws should be abolished. They were almost another political group. And it wasn't until the early 90s where two Boston pedophiles who were card-carrying NAMBLA members abducted a young boy and murdered him. And that boy's name was Jeffrey Curley in Massachusetts. And at that point, the Curley family sued NAMBLA as a organization. The suit got thrown out, but it was enough for them to gain enough national prominence that the group was essentially made, shut down to the point where they really haven't been heard from since then. They still operate on the internet, but it's just, a few loosely organized people. The FBI had come in, like I mentioned, Hamer, and infiltrated the group. He recounted one story to me where he went to a toy store in New York City with a bunch of NAMBLA members. And, all these kids, it was around Christmas time, these kids were there shopping and they're with their families. And he's like, these NAMBLA members are making all these sexually suggestive comments and talking about what they would do with these little boys. And he told me, Dave, if I had a grenade with me, I would have pulled the pin. I would have. So that's what you need to know about NAMBLA. And, excuse me, Tim.
Oh,
Nothing, has been written as far as I've ever been able to find in long form about NAMBLA activities in America. And that's something that I plan to do in the future. I give a bit of a taste in this book with some of the members and some of their activities, but I think there's much more to say on NAMBLA activities, specifically in New England, and I plan to do so in the future.
well, God go with you, my friend. It's a terrible situation to have to jump into, but someone has to do it, right? I mean, someone has to bring it to the light. Someone has to expose it. Someone has to bring it to the forefront in order.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm looking for more than anything out of my writing, and it not just specific to this case. There's other cases that it's just this happened, guys. And let's not forget the lessons of the past. There are many, many missing boys and girls from this region. There was a group that was stood up to basically normalize, using your word, and I love that word, these people's existence and their sort of union. And how the hell do we stop that from ever happening again? And how do we recognize these people in our community?
Right, right. And I mean, even for those people who, let's say, aren't parents, you may be aunts, uncles, whatever. Just imagine that that's your loved one, and they're saying, "Well, I have a right just to take your child," and I I I want to say I'm in love with this child, and I want to twist their mind and make them think that they're in love with me as well.
Sure. And there's a lot of grooming activity that happens around the parents too. As excuse me, somebody that is very prominent in this book is as serial pedophile and child murderer Nathaniel Barjonah. And Barjonah was a very charming guy. He was the type of guy who many families in Montana and New England allowed their kids to be babysat by Barjonah. This was a guy who, I think I prove in the book, he cannibalized a young boy, and parents had no problem handing their kids over to him to be babysat. How does that happen? How do you recognize these people? How much more education do parents need in history to know that it's probably not a good idea to just hand your children over to these people like Barjonah, because chances are everything in their life is based around their sexual proclivities. They're trying to get close to your children for a reason. They're not your friendly neighbor. They're trying to act out their fantasies. So
There are parts of the book having to do with Nathaniel Barjonah, where I made the mistake of eating lunch shortly before I read the book.
Yeah, yeah.
I almost threw up. I'm telling you, it was It was that disturbing, Dave.
There's a lot of bad people in this book, as I write in the book, and I think it's the most best way I could put it to a new reader is like there's no happy endings here. There's no real redeemable characters, and if you're looking for that type of book, I suggest not reading this all at once because it's just not there. But Barjonah might be the worst. Barjonah seemed to get off on terrorizing people, and with Chapman and others, I really do believe that they were just in business, and their business was producing child pornography. And if a kid got hurt in the commission of that, that's something they were willing to live with. But Barjonah was actually enjoyed terrorizing people and hurting people, and he got off on that. So I agree with you. He's the worst of the worst. He's the worst killer that I've ever personally studied as a layman. I've done a lot of studies and a lot of research for this book, 6-7 years leading up to this, and I've never come across somebody as uniquely evil as Barjonah.
He was a piece of work, boy. I tell you, we'll get a little bit into him in the second part of the program here. One of the questions I wanted to ask you off the top of the program here, Dave, is this. I wanted to make that transition from your own trauma to how do you start to seek out some of these disgusting human beings? How do you decide that you're the one who's going to go out and expose them? What made you trip that trigger? Was it something in your military service that you decided is that what it was that you decided, you know what, I'm going to be the one to put that brave foot forward and go out and decide to shine a light on these guys?
Well, I would say that I'm probably not even the first one. There was a documentary made called Have You Seen Andy by a woman named Melanie Perkins McLaughlin. And I had seen that documentary late one night. I was kind of battling a flu like I've been lately. And I was up, one of those like 2 a.m, like, give me something to latch onto here so I can get over my misery. And I saw this hour-and-a-half long documentary about a missing boy in Lawrence, Massachusetts in 1976. And I remember going to bed that night after watching it and going, oh my God, that was like, the most horrific documentary I've ever seen. Not that it was made badly, it was made spectacularly. It was just, the content, the subject matter. And I'd been wrestling with my own sexual abuse. I mean, let's be honest, I grew up in the same area as this young boy, maybe 30 minutes away. And I started thinking to myself, she had mentioned in the documentary there were 5 pedophiles at the pool that day that this boy Andy disappeared. And frankly, Tim, I started thinking like, were any of these pedophiles maybe some of the men who had abused me when I was a kid? Maybe this is a way for me to find out about my own self. And at that time I was like 28 years old, but I was still like really in the throngs of a deep, like nasty depression over it, and it was really coming back to haunt me hard, and I was like, I woke up that next morning and I remember I Googled the picture of Wayne Chapman. It was one of his booking photos who was the main and likely murderer of Andy Puglisi. And I just said, I'm going to find out everything I need to. I want to find out everything about this guy's associates. I need to find out everything about his childhood. I need to know every move he ever made in this state, in the surrounding states. And I'm going to go from there. I had always been a reader. I grew up in libraries. I had sort of a turbulent childhood. My parents were, my mom did the best she could. My father was an alcoholic and abusive. And, so I had always kind of went to the library, and I had read the very first true crime book I ever read was In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. And I always kept in the back of my mind, like, I'm going to write a book like that someday, something like that, and I'd always been into crime, of course. And eventually, after about a year of that, I was like, I gotta somehow get this into a form because the story is just incredible. Once it starts unfolding and you start looking at other things, you're like this labyrinth that sort of starts to build out. And it's like, how is the story never been told in full? And so I probably about 3 years into the research, I was like, I gotta do a book. So that it was really seeing that documentary that was like, wow, she did a great Mel did a great job of presenting it and the facts that she knew at the time in her own research into it. And I'll be forever grateful that she did it. But it ended with a lot of meat left on the bone. And it was also made back in 2003. And I had been sitting there now, this was 2013. I'm like, nothing's been talked about in 10 years on this. Let me see what I can do to expound upon that.
Interesting. All right. So that kind of sets you on your way. I tell you what, David, let's take a break here. When we come back, it doesn't just start with Wayne Chapman. It goes deeper. And as you start to unpeel the layers of Wayne Chapman and find out exactly how much is there, you start to realize that Wayne Chapman is not just a solitary entity, that these guys travel in packs, and that there's a whole labyrinth or a network of pedophiles, and that they lean on each other, and that it's quite the disgusting network. Folks, this book is so incredibly interesting. As much as I hate to put it that way, it's the mind of how these people work is intriguing. Obsessed is the name of the book, a survivor's quest to find justice for the lost boys of New England. David McGrath has really taken the mind of a pedophile, peeled it back, and exposed it for all of you to see. And it is dark. It is dark. I encourage you during the break to go to the link that we have in the description of this program. Get a copy. If you want to know exactly what kind of danger, even to this day, your children are in, you need to get a copy of this book. Read it, because David's done the legwork for you. It's all there for you, so you can see exactly what you're up against. When we come back, we'll talk to David about not just Wayne Chapman, but some of the other people that Wayne Chapman had surrounded himself with. It's absolutely chilling, folks, what you're up against. When we come back, more with David McGrath right here on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is David McGrath. The name of the book, Obsessed, a survivor's quest to find justice for the lost boys of New England. Folks, it's not just New England. It's not just Boston. It's not just that area that's got the scourge of pedophiles, of child molesters, of people that are out to get your kids. It's all over the United States. It's all over the world. You need a copy of this book. You want to find out what exactly you're up against? Pick up a copy of Obsessed. We have a link in the description of this program. Before we left you, we were talking about Wayne McGrath and the fact that David wanted to know exactly if it was someone like Wayne McGrath that had sexually abused him. So he'd seen this documentary. He knew that there was this 10-year gap between now, 2013, and when this documentary came out in 2003, and whether that gap needed to be filled in if there was more information about Wayne McGrath. Now, as you're starting to go down this rabbit hole here, Dave, you're starting to find out that it's not just Wayne McGrath, is it? It's not just Wayne McGrath is that solitary entity that goes out, does his crimes, goes home, lives his life. There's this web that he weaves, and he doesn't just exist on this island. They tend to lean on each other, support each other, and weave this sick web of exchanging things, don't they?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. So, when I first started looking into it, the first question I had, and I remember having a discussion, I don't know, 2014 or so with the detective from the Providence Police Department who had worked the Chapman case. And I asked him, I said, how the hell, because Wayne Chapman had been abusing boys. He was from upstate New York. He lived in the town of Jamestown, which is closer to New York, to Toronto than it is to New York City. So way up there in Western New York. And I asked him, how did a guy from Western New York who had been abusing little boys his entire life, he had already done prison time in Pennsylvania, he had been in Ohio, Virginia, how in the world did he end up in Providence, Rhode Island? And, I had asked that question, and the answer I got was insufficient. It was, it's right off the highway. These guys love to drive around. And And okay, that's fine for maybe an isolated crime, but how did he set up his life here? He got an apartment. He had multiple apartments, in fact. He had a job at Miriam Hospital right down the street here as a janitor. Nobody just moves to Providence from Western New York. You don't throw darts at maps and just say, okay, I'm going to move there. It didn't make sense to me. But it wasn't until a few years later I was actually reading some FBI reports on a New York mob boss named Roy DeMeo, and noted in DeMeo's FBI reports was that he had basically moved the hub of the child pornography production and dissemination business down to Providence, which had been run by a brutal mob boss here. Everything in just one sentence background on the city of Providence. It is the most corrupt city in the United States. And think about the ground that covers. It's Vegas, New York, Philly, Chicago, all these, formerly mob run states. It is like that in Providence. There was a mayor here who went to federal prison, got out and got reelected. It's an incredible place. It is the capital city of the smallest state. It is entirely run by the sex industry. It has the most adult dance clubs per capita, per resident. It has the most of any city in the United States. And even in the 1970s, it was totally ran by the sex business. And by that, I mean adult bookstores, things like that, strip clubs, swinger bars, things like that, which all still exist to this day. So that's a little bit of background in Providence. So I had read in those FBI reports that the Patriarcha family that ran out of Atwells Avenue here in Providence had taken over the pornography business. So they were basically now disseminating the child porn, and they needed low-level producers. And Wayne Chapman, I believe, came here through a network, set himself up. He worked as a janitor. He made $3.50 an hour. When he was caught, Tim, he was caught with state-of-the-art camera equipment. He was found with a dark room. Think about in the 1970s what it would cost to have part of your apartment be a dark room, made for the production of pictures, which was something that was, all of this was high-level technology at the time. So I believe that Chapman was known to be a child pornography peddler, creator, and distributor. And what happened was he was set up here in Providence, which was, again, the hub of child pornography at the time, a sex-driven economy, which it still is. And he was handed over equipment, given an apartment with a dark room, a job, and he was sent out to create child pornography. That way he could get it back into the hands of the people who knew how to make money with it. That's what I think he was doing here. So through the commission of all that, I believe that he made a network of other pedophiles with him, like guys like Nathanielbarjonah, Charlespierce, James Bauman, and other men who are figured prominently in this book. You have to remember that these guys are shunned by society. They know that. They know that they're looking for validation just like anybody else. And this sort of disgusting way of living your life is abhorrent to 99% of the population. So they're going to find each other and they're going to run to each other, Tim. And that's unfortunately what happened here.
And Dave, they would trade pictures like trading cards and be like, oh, I like this one. I like this one.
Yep.
It's disgusting.
And it was a multi-million dollar industry, even in the 1970s. And it was totally mob ran. There's many stories sort of offshoot stories that I tell in the book. There was a man, and anybody in the New England region who's listening to this is probably familiar with the Amazing Video stores. It's sort of like a sex store that you can go in and buy, certain adult novelties. That franchise was created by a man named Kenneth Guarino. Kenneth Guarino made his money peddling child pornography in the 1970s. I mean, it's just, there's no way to deny this. This whole industry was built on the back of abusing children, taking pictures, and then selling those pictures for money and trading them. And that's how it began. And to this day, you'll find an Amazing Video store on just about every street corner. They're almost like Dunkin' Donuts around here in the city of Providence. And it all goes back to that one man, Kenneth Guarino. And of course, he went on to move to California after he did some jail time, after one of his trucks was raided and there was reels of child pornography and other smut on there in the early 1980s. And he created his own adult video network that now hosts some porn titles. I'm not really familiar with exactly what he does. It's obviously all adult stuff now, nothing, but it was built on the back of child pornography. And just like one more offshoot story, there's a detective in the Providence Police Department who recounted a story to me about across the street from the Providence Police Department headquarters on Westminster Street. He had actually seen a storefront that openly sold child pornography. They had kids and magazines right out on the front, and the detective shut them down and said, this is insane. We can't have this. You first things first, you need to close. This is where this operation's getting shut down. And within an hour, he told me that he was being reprimanded by his bosses, saying, this economy here is built on the sex industry. You're not going to do this. And he quit over it. And he's like, this is the most corrupt town I have ever seen. This is incredible. I can't work here. I need to go back and live in Florida where I came from and that's just the way it is here. It's just accepted. And to this day, it not much has really changed, Tim.
Wow. I want to switch back to Wayne Chapman here. I want to put the focus back on Wayne Chapman here, who is the main pedophile and the main focus here. But there's these players that kind of they roam around Wayne Chapman throughout the book, and it's interesting how they're kind of satellites around Wayne Chapman, but yet they feed around him, and how they make him, they kind of upgrade him as a pedophile, because I think on his own he wouldn't have been as prolific. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I certainly don't. I don't know if it was. I think he was very prolific before he met any of these guys, Tim. I mean, he had been basically raping his own brothers as early as 7 years old. He was I would say that these guys around him were better criminals, so they kept Chapman from getting caught, at least, and he got caught a lot. And he always, this was a guy who had an IQ of around 80. He wasn't, a particularly book smart guy. I'm not saying he wasn't a cunning criminal. Eventually he became a cunning criminal, and he got away with 2 murders, almost certainly. And I think when you read the book, I lay out the case for Andy Puglisi and certainly for David Lewison, another boy who disappeared from Brockton, Massachusetts in 1974, who's almost certainly a Chapman victim. And, eventually these guys taught Chapman that what I think was Chapman was a heavy producer. He really knew how to get boys, get them away from their friends, sort of isolate them and take pictures. These other men like Barjonah and serial murderer charlespierce were much better at the after care, if you will, of getting rid of bodies, knowing how to talk to police and deny things, being able to work psychiatrists so they could get out of prison, be smart enough to confess to other crimes that maybe they did not commit to get better accommodations in prison. I think Chapman was, he was born to abuse kids. He was going to do that no matter what. But these guys probably gave him a little bit more time away outside of the prison walls, if you will, Tim.
Okay. Was Chapman did he tend to want to more leave them alive at the end of it? Or was he wanting to kill them as well at the end of his escapade, so to speak? I don't have a better word for it.
Sure. Yeah, sometimes it's hard. It's impossible to find a better word when you're talking about situations like this. I've kind of gone back and forth on that. If you asked me that question 5 years ago, Tim, I would have told you Chapman probably never set out to murder any of these boys. He was just a machine feeding his proclivities, right? I've kind of changed on that, talking to other victims. I had a victim tell me that Chapman showed him a picture of a little boy tied to a tree that was lit on fire, and the boy looked to be burned up, and he told him, I'm going to do this to you if you don't be quiet. Those are stories that are being recounted to me later on. So I actually think that Chapman was probably well on his way to being a child killer. And he looked at these boys as objects. Those are from his own words. He didn't have the overriding theme of the book is that these guys are sharks. They're just there to feed their interest, and whoever gets hurt in the commission of that, they're not going to bat an eye. And so I have my general thought on Chapman now is that he was likely a murderer on his own and didn't need much, pushing towards that. And these guys being around him just made it 10 times worse because they were true evil psychopaths, serial killers, Barjonah and charlespierce specifically, who would drive around with bodies in the back of his truck. And he was a necrophiliac. He was a carnival worker who had been raping children for 5 decades before he met Wayne Chapman. And, I allude in the book to he was a carnival worker who traveled the United States. And, I think there's heavy evidence that he killed a little boy at a carnival in Chicago. I've been working with the cold case unit at the Chicago PD to see if maybe we can get something nailed down on Pierce on this old murder of a young boy named William D'Souza. I spent some time there a few years ago. The community really remembers Billy. And, I think that was likely a Pierce victim. That's the scary part about the whole thing, Tim, is that these guys were everywhere and they were nowhere. They were in Ohio, they were in Virginia, they were in Maine. And wherever they were, boys went missing, Tim.
That's insane. It's insane that you could have such an impact, but be a ghost at the same time, that you make an impact, and people remember you, but yet you can't prove that they were there.
Yeah, nothing ever stuck. The only one who truly went down was Pierce. He admitted to killing a little girl named Michelle Wilson in Boxford, Massachusetts in 1969. And he went down for life. He died in prison. Chapman got out eventually. And, Barjonah eventually got out and ended up dying in prison. But none of them, Barjonah nor Chapman, ever went down on the books for a murder. And somehow they skated through folly, errors by police, which I certainly, in the Puglisi case, they had the sock that the little boy wore that day to the pool in Wayne Chapman's van. I mean, they pulled it out as evidence and they lost it. He almost certainly would have went down to that murder for life, but the police lost the evidence, Tim.
Let's talk about before we leave people today, let's talk about that case and let people know exactly what happened in that case, because it's a fascinating case and people should know about it, even though it happened in the 70s, as to how quickly you can lose a child.
Yeah. I mean, this little boy just went out. He lived in a housing project that overlooked the pool. And it was the hottest day of the year. I think it was over 100 degrees that day in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And little boy Andy Puglisi went swimming all day and disappeared. And he was never seen again. Multiple eyewitnesses, including the boy who went missing. There was a boy named Ray Clark who was basically abducted with Andy Puglisi, but ended up running away. He fingered Chapman as the eyewitness seeing him there. Multiple other eyewitnesses saw Chapman there. Chapman walked with a limp. He had a childhood bout with polio. He had a scar over his eye. He was very recognizable. The way he spoke, he sort of had a strange kind of sing-song Southern accent that people remember. And so this boy disappeared. He never came home that day. And the police had come out after an extensive search. They had brought in a special forces unit, a Green Beret unit that was just came back from doing heavy combat in Vietnam. That was based out of Fort Devens, Massachusetts. They brought them in. They spared no cost, but they also ended the search a bit early because police had come out and said that they had information that Andy was with a family member, and that put the community at ease, Tim. And the police kind of eased off, and basically the case went cold for decades. And the last person to ever see him was identified by eyewitnesses as a man fitting Wayne Chapman's description. Now, fast forward 2 weeks later, 1976, September, Andy goes missing on August 22nd. Here we are in mid-September. Wayne Chapman is stopped on the New York State Thruway, driving presumably home to New York, God knows. And the state trooper, Tony Vatter, who pulled him over, pulls him out of the car and finds, an unknowable amount of child pornography in the man's car, self-produced reels, magazines, Polaroid pictures, hand-drawn maps of different towns in New England, areas in Lawrence, and they hold him. And he takes some of these pictures and he puts out a teletype to different police departments across the country. There's a detective in Providence who's sitting in his office, sees the teletype. He sees a picture of a young boy that was taken at a state park. Very your New England listeners, they're going to know the park. There's a gigantic dog statue. My kids have been there 100 times. It still stands. It's in the middle of the park. You can't miss it. Everybody knows it's Roger Williams State Park in Providence. So the detective recognizes that, realizes that Chapman has a Providence address, goes over to his house, starts digging through his trash. He finds receipts. He finds receipts from Lawrence, from Brockton, Massachusetts, from Rhode Island, from all over different states. And he goes, I need to get up and interview this guy. I know that we have a missing boy in Massachusetts, in Lawrence. And he gets Chapman. Chapman basically, as he often did in those days, confessed. Yes, I was the one who did this. I'm the one who did the Brockton case, and eventually recants. And for whatever reason, whether he got a hold of counsel or if he talked to other pedophiles or other criminals, for whatever reason, Wayne Chapman recanted those confessions. And there was just never enough evidence, hard evidence, to link Wayne Chapman to the Puglisi case. And unfortunately, the sock that I had mentioned was pulled from Chapman's van that day during that traffic stop. It was Andy's mother was brought up to Providence from Lawrence. She ID'd it as the sock that he was wearing that day because she remembered that he was wearing long socks, and she had actually scolded him that morning. Hey, it's 100 and something degrees out. What are you doing wearing long socks? It's stuck in her mind. And it was like, a girl's sock. I guess he had grabbed him. His sister went to Catholic school. And for whatever reason, in the transfer of evidence from Providence to Lawrence, that sock was lost to history, and they never even indicted Chapman on that. The Chapman went away for 30 years for rapes that he had done the prior summer in Lawrence. And you have to ask yourself, and this is something, I won't get too long-winded here, but
it's fine.
Wayne Chapman ended up in Lawrence. How? What connection did Chapman have to Lawrence that would make him feel so comfortable that he could rape two boys at the swimming pool in the summer of 1975 and come back again in 76 and abduct Andy Puglisi? Well, it wasn't until years later that I learned that there was actually a storefront in Lawrence that was a major producer, major disseminator of child pornography. It was a local store that was known to disseminate child pornography. It was a huge business, Tim, in that area. And the two men who owned that store, of course, were Providence-based. I've never been able to make the connection, but I don't believe in conspiracies, but I know that there are no coincidences, Tim. Providence-based guys running a child pornography store right down the street from when these boys disappear, and they're from Providence. It always comes back to Providence, Tim.
Yeah. Just a couple of notes on that Puglisi case. The first of all, had they maintained proper custody of the sock, and even to this day, I mean, DNA testing, DNA testing, right? I mean, it would be so easy just to go back and test, even touch DNA on that.
Yep,
Had they
absolutely.
That's frustrating in and of itself. And the fact that the young boy that was with Andy at the time testified that there was more than one person with Wayne at the time. So it wasn't just Wayne Chapman who took Andy. It was a group. So that could have been Charles Pierce. It could have been.
I theorize that it was Pierce. just because Barjonah was so recognizable. He was 350
Yeah,
pounds,
he was huge.
long, scraggly beard. Google a picture if you're listening right now, and you tell me if you would ever forget that face. I don't think you would.
Of Nathaniel Barjonah. Yeah, yeah. He was very recognizable. But yeah, it could have been Charles Pierce with Wayne Chapman. And the two of them could have easily grabbed Andy and absconded with him.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Tim. My theory on what they did with Andy's body has really, in the last year, sort of evolved again. And it's evolved because I was out at the crime scene with Melanie about actually, it was probably last summer. And she was like, I'm going to take you from the pool and I'm going to walk you down to these woods and you tell me what you think of this undergrowth and if the body could be. And I'm telling you, I hadn't been to those woods in years, and it's not the type of place, Tim, where if you're going to walk your dog, you're going to go there. It is the growth is just so massive, and that wood area is just so massive. I could see Andy's body still being in there and nobody ever finding it. It's not the type of place you're going to take a walk at night. Hikers are not going to be able to get in there. It's one of those wooded areas that you're only going in there if for a reason. So, I had theorized that maybe they had brought Andy's body back to Providence. Because remember, Chapman, the most important piece of Chapman's employment was that he was a janitor whose one of his main duties was burning amputated body parts, rats, rodents, things like that. And he had the keys to that furnace. And the night that Andy Puglisi went missing on the 22nd, there was a burn that took place in that furnace that was unauthorized and not known to hospital administration. And that lead has never been fully chased down. And that's not me theorizing. That comes directly from the Providence police.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot more to this book, Obsessed, folks, that you need to pick up, you need to read. The one thing I do want to leave people with today before I let you go, Dave. And I don't want to get too deep into it. I want people to read it in the book. But you have come face to face with Wayne Chapman. And I just want you to comment on this. I'm not going to let people know how it ended. I want people to read it in the book. But I want you to describe to people what it was like to look into Wayne Chapman's eyes.
Yeah, Wayne Chapman was like looking at like an alligator or a crocodile. Like they see kind of right through you. You're just kind of like they're predators, and they're there. They exist for one reason, to feed. And it's like seeing a big brown bear when you're out hunting and they almost look through you. There's just no feeling. You're just food. They're just trying to figure out whether they can eat you or not. That's the best way I could describe Chapman. He's just a subhuman reptilian almost.
I read that chapter in the book and I was chilled. I was absolutely chilled. And I don't know how you held yourself back, to be honest with you, because as a guy with combat training, I'm surprised you didn't kill him.
Yeah, I walked away from that being, and for those of you who read it, I don't want to spoil it. And, I walked away from that thinking, Dave, this is a senior citizen confined to a wheelchair, and you're not going to have the time to explain to people what. And I ran into a similar situation in Florida when I was chasing down another pedophile, where it didn't obviously come to blows or anything, but it was kind of loud, and I finally got a hold to be able to look outside of myself for a minute and go, Dave, this doesn't look good to people who don't know what the hell's going on here. And and there was even a time where I grabbed my phone and I'm trying to Google and show people like, hey, this is who you're defending here. So I walked away from that. I don't know, a little embarrassed for myself and a little like, hey, Dave, you got to grab a grip. Like, you're not this didn't work out the way you thought it would. And it's not bad execution. It's just because it's not a good idea. I'll leave it at that.
I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. When people only see the end result of what you're trying to do and they don't see the body of work, right? And what a person's done. And you're trying to say, well, you know what? I'm here to get them to answer for their body of work. And they only see what that person is now. And they go, well, but it's just this. It's kind of like a Twilight Zone episode, right?
Yes, and it all came based off, um, I'll blame the great true crime author James Renner for that entire situation you know because he had written in his book, uh, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was based off the investigation he had done into a little girl who went missing named Amy Mihalovich in Ohio, I believe.
Mhm.
And he had written that he had caught a suspect, and I'm sorry, unfortunately someone's playing bagpipes outside my house. I apologize.
Okay.
That's odd. He had written in his book that he had gotten his best suspect and chased this guy down to Florida, and he was going to find this guy and give him a story that he had his DNA, and the police were on their way to get him, and the die had been cast for his guilt, and I had thought the same thing. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna find Chapman, and I'm gonna tell him that they found Puglisi's DNA in that furnace, and I just want to see how he will react. And that was, you read the book to find out how it went, but
Yep.
that was sort of my inspiration for that, Tim.
Yeah. And perfect inspiration to do so. And as you should. Um, but again, read the book to find out how it goes because it's very intriguing. It's very intriguing. Folks, I encourage you to get the book Obsessed, A Survivor's Quest to Find Justice for the Lost Boys of New England. There's things in here that will absolutely chill you. I think it's required reading for this reason alone, because in everyone's corner of the world, if you take in, it's very easy to do to find out exactly how many. Go on truthfinder.com and look at the amount of sex offenders that live in your area alone. That alone will chill you. It'll chill you to the bone. And find out exactly, with children in your life, how vigilant you need to be. And then go pick up a copy of David McGrath's book and learn the blueprint as to how vigilant you need to be, not only for the children in your life, but the children in your neighborhood. Then start taking your head out of your phone and looking around and start giving tips as to whether it be law enforcement or whoever when you see suspicious activity. Because it's time now for us to be vigilant, not only for our own children, but for other children as well, and to make this a much better society for the future generations out there. I think David, you'd probably second that as well, right?
Yeah, and I would just add to it that that if you read the most recent reports, Operation Pacifier, Operation there was an operation called Operation Pacifier, which was the biggest child pornography online investigation. I'll make this very short.
Sure.
That has ever taken place in the United States, where to the point where um, the FBI had actually taken over a child pornography website, a copy of it, using a network investigative technique that is classified. And basically, what they were doing is they were operating the website after the owner got taken down, which was a regular 53-year-old retiree from Naples, Florida, a guy who had a normal family, normal life, kids, the whole nine. And they basically, what happened is they allowed all these other men to come in and use the message boards, do the trading for a few days, and they stamped everybody's IP. And they took down, I can't remember what the exact number was, 20, 30,000 men. And
Wow.
they came from all walks of life. They weren't just the janitor like Wayne Chapman, who was a creepy janitor who worked at a hospital. They were gym teachers. They were police officers. They were elected officials. They were detectives, attorneys. So, we really need to clear our minds of what a pedophile looks like, acts like, behaves like. They're really, really good. And coming from somebody who worked in prisons, I've worked in every level of prison, state, federal, county. I've been able to observe pedophiles in their natural habitat, if you will, speak with them many, many times, many, many interviews. And they're just guys that, you would not even look twice at your local 4th of July barbecue. And that's the one thing that I would stress more than anyone. It's not the creepy guy, it's the janitor, it's the math teacher, it's the police officer, it's just the normal guy.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Folks, go get it right now. Obsessed, a survivor's quest to find justice for the lost boys of New England. David McGrath, I want to thank you so much for being on today's True Crime Tuesday.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Tim. Huge fan. Thanks, man.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you so much. Folks, it's time now for us to lighten things up a little bit. It's time now for us to bring in Jessica Freeburg, and it's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time. The time you've been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, we need a co-hostess. So what I've done is I've sent a carrier pigeon. I threw it up in the air. It froze instantaneously because it's like 55 below zero outside in the Twin Cities. So I went through more conventional means. I just picked up my phone and I texted, and I got a hold of one of the best co-hostesses in the business, ladies and gentlemen. She's intelligent, she's witty, she's funny, and she's darn good looking on the eyes. And of course, she's got 3 books out there. She's the Hindustan #1 selling author for the 5th week in a row. I know it's 5 because I can count them on my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Jessica Freeburg. Jessica, how are you today?
Hey, I'm freezing. It is so cold here in Minnesota, Tim.
It is. Is that a 5 or a -5? I'm trying to squint through my really bad glasses. I need to get.
I don't even know. I know that it's cold enough that my dogs freeze when they go out to go potty. So that's how cold it is.
They're dogsicles now. Do you need to put them near the heater?
They literally go out and they pee, and then they lift their one foot up, and then they just stand there and look at me. And Phoebe will fall over if I don't come get her. So
do you have little dog mittens for them? Do you put little dog?
She won't wear them. She's stubborn.
Doggy boots? I have to have a talk with her.
I know you do. Yes, she needs to wear her booties, but she doesn't like them.
Pretty good at having talks with animals. I've figured that out now. I can get
tempted to bring her up here so you can give her a stern talking to. But yes,
it's not a stern talking to. It's just a nice little talk. But they listen. I don't know what it is. It's just a nice little talking to, and I get them to. It's kind of like a baseball manager or a football coach, but without the yelling. It's kind of like a Kevin O'Connell talk.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Where I sit and I have a little talk with them, and I just say, here's the deal, kid. We kind of have to wear our booties when we go outside because it's cold. And we're gonna freeze our little pads off our feet. That's not a good thing. We need the pads on our feet.
I'm just glad I don't have to pee outside. We'll just put it that way. That's how cold it is.
Well, I don't have to, but I like to. It's just a weird habit I have. No, I'm kidding. I don't.
If I was a guy, I would pee outside all the time. Are you kidding? Even if there was a bathroom, I'd be like, look I can pee outside. And if it was snowy, better yet, I would totally be writing my name in the snow, putting little hearts on there.
I try to convince the bank to let me sign my documents that way, but they don't let me. So it is what it is. But anywho, Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. Boy, do we have stories today. Just to give you a sneak preview, there's a lot of cops in today's shows. Not that we're disparaging the police department at all. It's just there's a lot of cops involved today. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if at the beginning of the year they get to cash in their bad points. I don't know if that's we get to act up at the beginning of the year or what it is. I don't know what that is. I want to thank a lot of our listeners for sending in stories this week. Evidently, our listeners are on point and they're checking out different stories. We did get the most sent in story this week had to do with a woman who mistakenly texted a cop and not her drug dealer. So thank you for that. We'll get to that one today. It was a popular story, Jess. I got to tell you that. We'll talk a little bit about grabbing your beef in a Costco in Florida. So you know what I'm talking about. I'm getting a hold of your beef, if you know what I mean. Their not safe for work section of today is huge.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it is action packed and ready to rock. So we've got that today. And our palate cleanser even is a little dirty. So it's just.
Oh, super.
Yeah. So the kids didn't learn anything over Christmas break. So we'll just put it that way.
Well, I can't wait to hear all of it, Tim. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's get into it. We'll start it off with this, Jess. Let's just put it this way. Sometimes our neighbors aren't so neighborly. And when you get out there and you're doing family activities, maybe you're skiing or you're sledding, just make sure you duck.
Okay.
Okay. Especially when you're sledding. If you hear a pop, just put your heads down real quick. It turns out it could be your neighbor taking shots at you when you're out there sledding.
Dang.
Yeah. We go to Tennessee, where right off the bat, a Tennessee man is arrested after shooting at a family sledding in the snow. Disappointed in America today, Jess. I really am.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never looked out over into the neighbor's yard and went, oh, look at the kids out sledding. Let me load up. That's never been the first thing I think when I see, the kiddies out there sledding.
Maybe he felt left out.
Well, that could have been, yeah. I'm a little bit jealous that they're out there without me, and maybe I'll make them some cocoa, or maybe I'll fire a few rounds at them. That's never dawned on me. A Tennessee man is facing charges after he allegedly opened fire on a family that was sledding in the snow, purporting that the family was on his property. Okay. Now, Jess, there are a couple of kids that live right next door. Love them to death. I don't care if they're on my property at all.
You don't either.
In fact, I invite them to come onto the property. If they want to throw the ball around, if they want to run around on the property, they even come over to come see the chipmunks. I have them come over to come see the chipmunks. I don't care.
Yeah. I say, come on over. I'm with you.
It's grass. Grass is there to be ran on. It's a yard. It's there to be played on. Who cares?
People are weird.
Yeah. People are weird about that.
Yeah.
Benjamin Cook is facing 6 counts of aggravated assault in connection with the shooting, according to the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. Additional charges could be filed pending the outcome of the investigation. The Sheriff's Office said deputies responded to the 6300 block of Stony River Drive on Friday, following a report that a man was shooting at a family of 6 playing outside in the snow. Again, who cares? Who cares if they happen to get over the yard line? Unless we're talking about the Vikings, they need to get over every yard line they can. True. Preliminary information from the scene showed that the parents and their 4 children walked down the street to go sledding down a hill in their neighborhood, according to deputies. But at around 11:30 a.m., the family said they heard gunshots coming from the direction of a house down the hill near the 10400 block of Birchwood Pike. The mother said she observed snow fly up from the ground just a couple of feet from her 1-year-old son. So the 1-year-old toddling along, and then snow flies up just a few feet away from the 1-year-old.
Tried to shoot a baby.
Yep. Tried taking shots at the baby. By the way, here's the, if you don't mind me using the word, I'll use it liberally. Here's the asshole who took a shot at the kid right here. If you're watching on video.
Yeah. He looks like a mean man. Look at that owl.
Yeah. He doesn't look like he probably hands out full-size candy bars on Halloween.
His eyes look a little dead inside too. Ugh.
They do, don't they? It looks like that might even be a false eye. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying. The parents immediately looked in the direction of where the shots were coming from and yelled at a man who later identified himself as Cook to stop shooting. What, Captain Cook? I mean, what? Why is he identifying himself as Cook? I'm going to cook your children and eat them? Why is he
scary?
Yeah, I don't know. The man claimed the family was on his property, but the family responded that they were not on his property. Okay. So
how about you start with, hey, you're on my property. I'm crabby. Please go away.
Yeah. Hey, you're on my property. Could you get off it?
Yeah.
Good start. And they're going elsewhere. So does it matter if they're walking elsewhere? Do you care?
Psycho.
It's not like they're doing a little dance and taunting you. Ha ha. Hey, Cook. Look at me. I'm dancing on your property. I'm not leaving. You know, who cares?
Yeah, he sounds like a lunatic.
The family then gathered their belongings and went home before reporting the incident to authorities. Deputies responded to the shooter's house and spoke to Cook. I would have done a little bit more than that. I probably would have shoved his face in the snow and probably, just gave him a snow snogging, I think is what they call it. I'm not sure. It's where you get snow up in his nose and his eyes.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, you just rub his face in it. Just make him all cold and stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you get all aggressive with it. They also obtained pictures from a neighbor showing Cook in matching clothing walking through the woods carrying a black rifle slung across his back. What is he, Elmer Fudd? Is there... What's he doing out there?
He is a little Elmer Fudd-esque in that picture. I can totally see that now that you say that.
Either that or he's Yosemite Sam. Look at him. He's kind of Yosemite Sam. Varmints. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
He looks so mad.
Yeah, varmints. Kind of got that deal. Yeah.
I like his beard though.
He's got kind of a bushy beard.
I'd be putting oils with like sparkles in it if it was mine. Glitter beard. I'd be the guy with the glitter beard.
You the guy with the glitter beard? Well,
that guy doesn't shoot people though.
No, the guy with the glitter beard never shoots anybody. No, he's kind of like, see?
We're all friends.
We're all friends here in the forest. An investigation also revealed that the family was not on Cook's property when he began shooting. So they weren't even close. The guy just took off and started shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah. A search warrant was executed at Cook's home where several rifles were found inside. There's a shock. So there you go. He's just wound a little too tight. By the way, he was arrested on aggravated assault charges.
Good.
So there you go. Another one in the pokey. as he should be.
As you should be if you shoot at babies.
That's right. As you should be if you shoot at innocent babies who are only trying to go sledding and enjoy the winter.
That's right. Wild.
By the way, this next one gets filed under bitch better have my money. It turns out that this woman from Florida, we are going to Florida for this one, allegedly injured her 83-year-old employer, stole her money and holiday cards after being denied $500 in Christmas bonus money. She actually took the check by force, is what the quote is here.
It's kind of like Christmas Vacation, the holiday one, right?
That's right. It's just like Christmas Vacation. You got it, Jess. A Florida housekeeper, once entrusted with maintaining domestic tranquility for her octogenarian employer, was recently arrested after a Christmas Eve confrontation as it escalated to an angry bout of larceny and physical violence. That, according to Sunshine State law enforcement. This is so Christmas Vacation. $500 bonus. 29-year-old. I don't know where I'm getting that from. 29-year-old Heather Nelson stands accused of a litany of felonies, which, by the way, Litany of Felonies is a great album name. I don't care who you are. Including aggravated battery, robbery, forgery, fraud, passing a counterfeit instrument. That sounds like something you do in a band. And grand theft, according to authorities and court filings in Brevard County. She also faces a lone misdemeanor fraud charge. The incident allegedly stemmed from the victim's inability to provide her cleaner with a requested $500 Christmas bonus. After the bonus was denied, the defendant allegedly made off with an even bigger haul, and the 83-year-old victim was left with a swollen wrist. That, according to the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. She actually took the check by force. She took some Christmas cards that had money in them, took some debit and credit cards, left the residence, forged some signatures, and attempted to take quite a bit of money from this woman, according to the Sheriff's Office Public Information Officer, Todd Goodyear, who has the most fake cop name I've ever heard in my life. Todd Goodyear. He told that to Orlando-based Fox affiliate WOFL. But Nelson's alleged transgressions did not end with the purloining of the checkbook. According to the sheriff's office, investigators say the defendant went on to use the stolen loot to pay her outstanding rent, drafting a check in the amount of $1,400. Now that's a Christmas bonus.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'd take it.
Yeah.
Not by force, though.
That's right. So that exceeded the amount of the would-be bonus. Based on what she was using the monies for, she was in financial trouble. Goodyear went on to tell the TV station maybe she just saw this as the only way possibly out of it, but to take advantage of her elderly seniors is not what you do. Nelson was apprehended nearly 2 weeks after the initial incident, a delay attributed to the time required to trace her alleged financial malfeasance. Deputies followed the money trail after the allegedly forged check cleared and credit card transactions posted, which led to Nelson's arrest on January 7th, that according to the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office castigated the defendant in a multiple paragraph press release with multiple Dr. Seuss references upon her arrest. Are you ready for the Dr. Seuss references?
Yes, please.
All right. They got into it. It was a holiday theme for everybody. Are you ready for this? They say, quote, when the victim announced that he didn't have enough money to give her a bonus, Nelson responded by physically wrenching the victim's checkbook from her hand, stealing a check from the checkbook, and then, I guess, in an effort to ruin other people's Christmas as well, stole Christmas cards that were set to be mailed out, so also containing checks. Damn, Grinch, you went too far. I guess committing battery and almost breaking the wrist of the elderly victim wasn't bad enough, so you decide to steal all her money and take Christmas gifts that were meant for others as well. What's next? Kick her dog? Oh,
That is very Grinchy of her.
that is very Grinchy. Now, while the original Grinch story may have ended with everyone in Whoville being happy and sharing their Christmas with the Grinch, this one ends with Agent Cheryl not being happy at all about what happened and going and getting a warrant. The press release goes on. Oh, so they followed it up.
Very clever.
Authorities say the housekeeper was a longtime and trusted employee. The elderly are scammed. They're taken advantage of by other people a lot of times because they have some diminished capacity or they are very trusting, Goodyear told WFOL or OFL, one or the other. I think they wrote it two different ways. See, that's a Dr. Seuss thing too. They grew up in a time when people trusted each other. Originally arrested and held on $30,000 bond, Brevard County Jail records show Nelson was released on January 9th. So her new year wasn't so happy after all. By the way, this is a look at the unhappy housekeeper. She still looks unhappy.
She looks so innocent, though.
She kind of does, doesn't she?
She does.
Yeah. She
has a very sweet, innocent-looking face, and bam, she just beats up an old lady.
Oh yeah, she just went to town. She was like, $500. Try like $2,000. I'm not taking that $500.
She's like, I clean your toilets, lady.
That's right. Now I'm going to clean.
I get it. I want money from my kids for cleaning their toilets too, but
yeah, but you can't beat them up for it. I mean, you could.
No.
I'd
end up on here if I did.
That's right. Yeah, you probably would. Yeah. We're going to Portland for our next story, Jess. Oh boy. Okay, so I showed you one picture. I'm going to show you another. This is what you get for your troubles when you say, "Hey, I'll give you a ride home from the bar on New Year's Eve."
Oh, that guy has a black eye and what's up with his head?
It's wrapped in gauze.
Oh,
yeah,
beat up bad.
This poor guy took to the woodshed. So here's the deal. Not only did he get taken to the woodshed by the guy that he gave a ride to, the cops gave it to him.
What?
Here's the deal. Portland cops arrest and torture the victim of a roadside assault. I know it's only going to get more confusing before it gets clearer. So here's the story. Around 8 p.m. on the night of New Year's Day, 70-year-old Bill Lundgren, a divorced hospice and Meals on Wheels volunteer who teaches English at Southern Maine Community College, the guy can only be more of a saint, and it's going to get really bad before it gets better. Went to a neighborhood bar near his Deering Center home for dinner and a couple of cocktails. There he saw 41-year-old Thomas Pushak, who is a construction supervisor who also frequented the place. And the two acquaintances struck up a casual conversation during which Pushak remarked that he didn't have a ride home. Lundgren offered. He said, "I'm leaving in a little bit. if you can put up with being slobbered over by 2 Springer Spaniels, I'll give you a ride. Yes, he had his Springer Spaniels with him. So he's like,
Aw.
if you don't mind riding with the puppies and getting a little slobber on you, I'll give you a ride home. Not a big deal. I don't want you driving drunk. Hey, I'll give you a ride home.
Yeah.
That's really nice of Mr. Lundgren, right? So Pushok gratefully accepts, and at around 9 p.m., soon after they crossed Washington Avenue heading north on Allen Avenue, Pushok asks Lundgren to pull over all of a sudden. Just in the middle of nowhere, says, hey, pull over. All right?
Okay.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
He did so, figuring that they were near Pushok's home. And suddenly something horrible happens. Without warning of the slightest provocation, Lundgren said, Pushok began viciously punching him in the face and head, possessed by a blind drunken rage.
Oh no.
Right? He says, if I wouldn't have gotten out of my car, I think he would have killed me, Lundgren told the Bollard last weekend during an interview at his home. He opened his driver's side door and tumbled out onto the pavement as his dogs panicked in the back. Pushok exited from his side and fled into the wooded neighborhood nearby. Passengers in a vehicle behind Lundgren stopped when they saw him hit the frozen ground and approached to administer aid. So this poor guy got pummeled for giving this guy a ride home.
This is terrible, Tim. I hate this story.
Well, I do too, Jess, but it gets worse. He says, I can't even see I'm bleeding so bad, Lundgren recalled. He believes the Good Samaritans were off-duty first responders. They were awesome, he said. They just took control. They got the blood off my face and calmed me down. They also placed an emergency call to help the stunned and beaten senior who underwent major back surgery about a year ago, then left after the police arrived, figuring, hey, the police have it under control, right? I mean, that's the theory.
Right.
Well, guess what, Jess? When the cops showed up, I'm like, oh, good. Finally, this nightmare is about to end, Lundgren recalled. Instead, it was just fucking starting. That is Lundgren's quote. I'm not saying he's saying it, okay? From the moment they got out of their car, I was a criminal, he continued. The first thing that they should have done with me is take me to the emergency room. Instead, they were hell-bent on filing their DUI quota for the month, and they were convinced that I was drunk.
He wasn't drunk. He was just beat up.
Right. The 2 Portland police officers, both white men, demanded Lundgren perform a field sobriety test. I said, guys, I just got the shit kicked out of me. I can barely stand up, and you want me to walk a straight line?
Oh my God, this is crazy.
Right. They did. And after another field test, this one of the assault victims, I'm not reading this right. This one of the assault victims' eye movements, they didn't say I failed. This doesn't make sense. They did. And after another field test, this one of the assault victims' this line doesn't make sense.
I think it's written weird. It's not you, Tim.
It says this one of the assault victim's eye movements. So I think they were measuring his eye movements.
Okay.
And his eye movements weren't right because he was probably concussed.
Yeah, he just got his head cracked.
Right. So they said, Lundgren says, they didn't say I failed, but that's when they cuffed me, said Lundgren. And they cuffed me violently and, pardon my language, he says, and fucking threw me in the back of the car. It was physical abuse. Lundgren was livid and bewildered, thinking, holy shit, I'm the criminal here suddenly. How the F did this happen?
Yeah, that's wild.
He told the officers he'd been assaulted and even called the bar at the scene to get Pushok's last name for them. The patrolman seemed wholly uninterested and unconcerned about the attack, or that a violent man in a drunken rage was then wandering among the houses and businesses nearby in sub-freezing temperature. Oh, there's 3 outstanding warrants out for him right now, Lundgren said. He was told totally offhandedly. So they knew there was 3 outstanding warrants for this guy who just beat Mr. Lundgren up. Don't worry about him. There's other officers pursuing him, the cops tell Mr. Lundgren.
Okay, well then take this guy to the hospital.
Right. Get help for this guy. The handcuffs were extremely tight and had been applied by forcing Lundgren's arms behind him. Laying on his back with his hands and shackled wrists crushed beneath his body weight was too painful, so he sprawled across the back seat on his stomach as the cruiser slowly drove to the Cumberland County Jail 6 miles away. I'm in the back seat of the squad car screaming because I was in such agony, Lundgren recalled. I might have a low threshold of pain, but it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And they were getting off on it, he said of the 2 Portland cops. They thought it was amusing. They were just kind of smirking. And when I would say, can you loosen these handcuffs up? They said, no, that'd be a violation of policy. Once they're on, they're on. So they were getting a kick out of this guy and the fact that he was hurting.
That's crazy. This is so sad.
Yeah. I said, you're fucking torturing me, which is what it was, Lundgren added. They didn't give a shit, according to Lundgren. That's a direct quote. Upon arriving at the jail, the cops pulled Lundgren out of the cruiser by his feet and marched him, still handcuffed, inside, where they attempted to give him a breathalyzer test. Apparently, the machine there wasn't working properly, and a lacking of functioning breathalyzer elsewhere in Portland, the officers drove him to a police station somewhere in South Portland and made him blow into another device. The result, according to Lundgren, was a blood alcohol level of 0.05, about half the legal threshold for a drunk driving charge of 0.08. And a level that accords with Lundgren's story that he had consumed 2 mixed drinks and a full meal before leaving the restaurant an hour or so prior to the test. The cops were crestfallen, that's a quote, upon seeing that result, said Lundgren, but they had a theory they believed would justify charging him with drunk driving anyway. If that first breathalyzer would have worked, you would have been charged with the DUI, they said, according to Lundgren, where he upon exploded in indignant anger again. And that's my fault that you can't get technicians to get equipment that works, you fucking morons, he screamed at them. I was in their face. They're such incompetent MFers.
Oh my gosh.
So he got mad.
I mean, I would have been mad too, but I would have been more crying.
Finally, Lundgren was transported in the cop car to the emergency room at Maine Medical Center in Portland's West End, admitted as an incarcerated suspect. That's right. He was still under charges.
God.
A young ER doctor eventually stitched up the gashed brow above his right eye and bandaged his badly bruised right ear. Lundgren's wrist, ribs, and back were also in significant pain. He was having difficulty taking deep breaths, and he was experiencing what his doctor later called brain fog because of a severe concussion, the effects of which continued for over a week. The nightmare also continued into the following week. The Portland Police Department had called Mayetta Towing to remove Lundgren's Toyota Tacoma pickup from the scene, but when Lundgren called to retrieve it the following morning, neither the cops nor the South Portland Record Company could find it. After numerous phone calls in about 2 hours, the truck was finally located in a tow lot. By the way, Lundgren had to pay $150 to get it back.
Oh my gosh.
He should have
I
never,
would be so angry.
yeah, he should have never had to have paid for that in the first place. By the way, you may be wondering about the dogs who were in the back of that truck.
Oh, yes.
Remember?
Yeah. I forgot about them and all the chaos.
His traumatized dogs have been brought to the Animal Refuge League in Westbrook, where he had to pay another $125 to regain custody of them following a prolonged application process and a mini investigation shelter staff undertook to confirm he's the rightful owner, despite the fact that both spaniels have chips indicating that Lundgren owns them and they live at his house.
Oh my gosh. This guy had the worst day ever.
Mm-hmm. On Friday, January 3rd, Lundgren went to police headquarters on Middle Street to file a complaint against the 2 officers. He was told a copy of the incident report would be sent to him in 5 days, and a senior officer there sat him down to chat. The erudite English professor, he's an English professor, keep in mind, refers to this smooth-talking supervisor as Mr. Is it Oleagnus, I believe, or Officer Friendly. Speaking of the patrolman, this officer said, well, you were contentious with them, according to Lundgren, who replied, I was not contentious with them until they were fucking with me. They started it. The senior officer also repeated the patrolman's contention that Lundgren had been too drunk to drive that night, saying, you were probably over the limit when they first encountered you, Lundgren recalled. He says that's effing speculation, Lundgren shot back. You have no effing idea. And again, I mentioned, if you can't get your breathalyzer to work, that's on you. I should have been taken to the hospital immediately. And they could have done a simple blood test right there to determine my blood alcohol content. And he's
That's
absolutely
true.
100% correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have. On Tuesday, January 7th, the Ballard emailed Portland police spokesman Brad Nadeau with questions about the cops' response to Lundgren's assault, as well as their response to another similar incident that happened in Portland last spring. In that incident, the details of which are the subject of a forthcoming article in an investigative series, a Portland brewery owner was badly injured in a traffic accident after work and was cuffed, stuffed, and booked on suspicion of OUI by Portland police responding to the medical emergency call made by a bystander on his behalf. Only after a nurse at the jail directed officers to bring him to a hospital for emergency treatment were his injuries addressed. And those injuries may have been aggravated by being transported half hogtied in the backseat of a police vehicle for many miles. The victim in that case is currently challenging the OUI charge Portland police filed against him that day. A dispositional conference is scheduled for next month.
Yeah. I feel like a lawsuit is in the making in all of this.
It should be.
Find yourself a good personal injury lawyer.
This poor man. English professor.
Yeah. Just trying to be nice.
That's how he spent his New Year's, Jess.
No good deed goes unpunished, Tim.
That's right. You wrapped it up very nice. Meanwhile, we go back to Florida, Broward County to be exact, where a Broward principal claims he's Shaquille O'Neal's cousin while he's impersonating a deputy. I mean, it takes all kinds, right?
Why not? Okay.
Why not? Interestingly enough, a 58-year-old Broward County principal was arrested Tuesday for impersonating a deputy during a traffic stop on the Florida Turnpike, where he also claimed to be the cousin of basketball star Shaquille O'Neal. Because if you're going to go all the way, right?
That's right.
Look, I'm a deputy. Oh, you don't believe that? Well, Shaquille O'Neal's my cousin. So you might as well let me go.
Oh.
According to an arrest report from the Florida Highway Patrol, a trooper was stationary in a marked vehicle when he observed a gray Kia Stinger. First of all, if you're Shaquille O'Neal's cousin, do you think he wants you to be seen dead in a Kia Stinger?
I'm going to go with no. Probably not.
Probably not. He was observed in a gray Kia Stinger with dark tinted windows and an altered license plate heading southbound near mile marker 54 just after 4:30 p.m. Authorities said the plate, which read Ayoord, Ayoord, raised suspicion. Is that anything backwards?
What does that mean?
I don't know. Drooya. It's nothing back.
I wish my daughter was in here. She's so good at figuring out what license plates mean.
Well, it raised suspicion either way.
I'm suspicious of it.
I would be too. Yeah. It prompted the trooper to initiate a traffic stop. When the trooper approached the vehicle, he noticed the driver, identified as Carlton Odell Johnson, to open a wallet with a gold star inside. Oh, that's bad. You know, when you get stopped by a deputy and you open your wallet and there's a gold star inside, he goes, "Oh, are you a fellow brother officer?" And you go,
"Yeah."
"Oh, yeah. And he says, "What department? What's your badge number?" And you go, 1.
1904.
Yeah, 1904, 903, 902. Yeah, that trick never works. Johnson then claimed, quote, I'm an officer. Oh, that's bad. And then continued to insist that he was one of you when asked for his driver's license and vehicle registration. Oh, God. Johnson also stated, I thought we treat each other better. I thought we treat each other better, Jess. We're brethren.
That's right. It's a brotherhood, Tim. We take care of each other.
Blue line, right? And referred to himself as a deputy. Investigators said the FHP trooper noticed that Johnson was displaying a badge for the Broward Sheriff's Office, leading him to initially believe that Johnson was a deputy. However, after further questioning, authorities said Johnson admitted he was not a full-time deputy. It stated he was a reserve deputy and related to basketball player Shaquille O'Neal, because that'll get you off if the part-time deputy doesn't. It's, hey, Shaquille's my cousin. So,
That's right. Let me go.
Yeah, let me go. The trooper then contacted the Broward Sheriff's Office to verify Johnson's claims, only to discover that Johnson was not affiliated with the agency in any official capacity. According to the report, authorities said the badge Johnson presented was labeled honorary, and it was not an official law enforcement badge. Additionally, BSO officials confirmed that Johnson did not have a CCN number, which is assigned to all current and former law enforcement personnel. Jail records show Johnson is facing one count of fraudulently impersonating a police officer. Why would you not just say, no, it's just ornamental? It's not.
Yes. And what does honorary mean? Was it given to him from them as an honorary badge, or did he buy it off Amazon? Like,
I would have just stated it's honorary.
I'd be like, it's not real, guys.
I wouldn't even have tried.
Nope.
If you know you're dead to rights, I wouldn't even, because it's going to be a charge.
I mean, you could try the Shaquille O'Neal thing. Sure. That's not going to get you an extra charge.
No, not at all. Maybe an autograph.
I mean, sometimes you got to fib and be cooler than you actually are. But
exactly. Yeah. Johnson was Broward County's Principal of the Year, by the way, while working at Blanche Ely High School in Pompano Beach. That's his only claim to fame, Jesse.
Well, that's pretty good, but
although Johnson didn't have much to say to Local 10 News after posting $2,500 in bond, his attorney, Johnny McRae Jr., addressed reporters after his client's release. Sometimes when people know people, they say, well, look, I'm a friend of this person or that person. Hopefully they get a break. That's not illegal, McRae said. I think everything was just a mix-up. It was confusion. I think it's something that'll work out favorably. Because his cousin is LeBron James. So, no, I don't know.
oh gosh. Have you ever pretended you were related to someone famous though, Tim? No. I did in fourth or fifth grade. I told everyone that Ray Parker Jr., who sings the Ghostbusters song, was my uncle.
Really? Now, see, I wouldn't have gone with the Ghostbusters themes. I would have went with Jack and Jill because I'm a radio fan.
Yeah. There you go.
So, and I like Jack and Jill better than the Ghostbusters theme. So
yeah, I don't know. I was obsessed with Ray Parker Jr. and Bill Murray. Bill Murray is still my crush from the 80s.
Oh, there you go. See,
forever.
So what made you think that you're going to get over with Ray Parker Jr.? People will run. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, we look like each other, right? Like,
yeah.
We look related.
Yeah.
Someone pointed that out. He's an African-American man and I'm not.
And you're Lily White.
Yeah. I was like, well, he married my aunt. So.
Oh, so it was by marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. I see that.
First, it wasn't meant to be. I meant for him to be my blood relative. And then when someone pointed out that would not make sense, I was like, obviously, he married my aunt.
Yeah. You had to amend the story. Yeah, I see. Well,
I don't know. I was a poor kid. I must have needed attention or something.
Good thinking on your feet, though. I applaud the shift. That's for sure. I mean, you're always thinking. That's for sure. That's why you're an author. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
That Ghostbuster song. He wrote it for me.
Yeah, that's right. He wrote it about the experiences we had when I was a child in a haunted house.
Exactly.
And I said to him, Uncle Ray, who are we going to call? He said, well, we call Ghostbusters. And I'm like, you should write a song about that.
It should be a movie. You should put my boyfriend in it, Bill Murray.
Maybe you know him. And then I got him the part in the movie.
That was a thing. I was really instrumental in this movie happening.
I called up this guy I knew, Dan Aykroyd, and I said, you know who you should put in the movie? Bill Murray.
Perfect. Done.
See, it all revolved around Jess. Nobody knew that.
Yep. I started it all way back in the day. I think, what was I, 11, 10?
Yeah. And now we have the exclusive right here on this show. We can tell you this. We can tell you the untold story of Ghostbusters right now.
Oh, it was a good dream when I was little.
So I'm glad we could break that exclusive right here on True Crime Tuesday. Just saying.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you. Okay, our next story. on Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. We go to Houston, where it turns out there's a huge drug problem in the Houston Police Department.
That's
Although
not good.
it's been limited to the evidence room.
So the people guarding the evidence are just in there like snorting stuff up their nose?
Not the people.
Oh, the dogs?
Oh, I wish it were
The
the
rats.
dogs.
The rats.
Yes, it's the rats. You got it, Jess. It's the it's the non-dog animals in there that are, the rats are getting high in the evidence room.
Oh my goodness.
That's right. You nailed it right on the head there, Jess. You are sharp today. Let me tell you.
I know. This is like Ratatouille, but with an edge.
Yeah. It's like they remade the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air into Bel-Air. This is like Ratatouille, but rat-tatouille. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a remake. It's like
We should write that, Tim. We could become rich and famous.
Yeah.
And then little kids would be pretending that they're related to us.
That's right. Houston police evidence room has been infested with drug-addicted rats that need to be cleared out. You can tell it's a drug-addicted rat because they're shaking in the corner and they're fiending for their next fix.
I was going to say, it's not just that they're eating it. They're literally having withdrawal symptoms when they don't have it.
They're like, come on, man. Come on. Oh, you got that good shit on you. You're just holding out. Houston, we have a rat problem. The Houston police property warehouse where thousands of pounds of drugs. Oh my God. Can you imagine what a tolerance those rats have?
Oh man.
Oh,
it's surprising they're not all OD'd. That's like,
well, a few of them I think probably have.
Oh gosh.
But the ones who haven't, oh my God, like bull elephants. They could probably just, they're like Tony Montana at the end of Scarface. They just put their little snouts in a whole mountain of cocaine and come up. Say hello to my little friend. You just see it. I mean,
you can see it. Yeah. And then they just go crazy and eat each other's tails off and
little
break stuff.
A rat in a white suit. Glorious. The Houston police property warehouse where thousands of pounds of drugs, there's not people in there, there's just rats. Thousands of pounds of drugs, blood samples, and countless pieces of evidence have been collected at crime scenes is now in desperate need of a cleanup as it's been attracting rodents for years. The Houston Police Department, Mayor John Whitmire, and the newly elected Harris County District Attorney Sean Tier announced on Friday that they're joining forces to tackle the issue of decades-old evidence that has led to a rat infestation in the evidence room. For many years, we've recognized that the property room and the evidence kept there has not been given the attention it needs in this system, Whitmire said in a press conference on Friday. The local agencies will work together to discard old evidence and move recent evidence into the Houston Forensic Science Center for storage. To explain the volume HPD has to deal with in its evidence rooms, Whitmire detailed a growing problem of rats invading old evidence. Now get this, Jess. Whitmire says, we got 400,000 pounds of marijuana in storage that the rats are the only ones enjoying. That's some Cheech and Chong shit right there.
Yeah.
Just a couple of rats twisting spliffs all day.
Rolling up their joints.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they don't have opposable thumbs, I'm just saying, but
I'm sure they're figuring it out with their feet and their hands. They can work it out.
Yeah, they're just rolling it up. And can you just imagine those rats having a field day with 400,000 pounds of weed?
I really can. It's kind of adorable.
It's adorable.
I really need this to be made into the next Pixar movie, please.
Rolling joints with Ratatouille. Houston Police Department Chief Noe Diaz asserted the issue in its evidence room has been kicked down the road by previous HPD and city officials. The department keeps over 1.2 million pieces of evidence in storage, some of which are no longer needed due to the offenses the offenses have already passed through the legal system. Yeah, so if we don't need it, give it to the rats. I guess, right?
Yeah.
I guess. She says, we have notes from a 1947 homicide that we still keep, Diaz said. We have instances where we have kilos of cocaine from the 90s.
What? That's crazy.
Where people have already been sent to prison, have already been released from the sentence, and we still store it. So people have gone through the system and they still have the coke from it.
Right. Why not just dispose of it? That's bananas. And also, does Coke get better with time, like a fine wine or a whiskey? Like,
You don't know.
or is it more like my aspirin or whatever, and it gets worse over time? It's less potent.
That's a very good question. I don't
Yeah,
I got to think it's got to lose some of its potency.
I would think so. It's more like an over-the-counter drug, only
Yeah.
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 not delicious aged whiskey.
The delicious aged whiskey. Well, but if they've bagged it up, if it's bagged up tight,
Yeah,
I got to think it's still good.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, ask the rats, clearly.
Yeah. They'll tell you, they'll be like, listen, it's still great. As they're running around in circles. Shit's still good. It may be 40 years old. Yeah. Everything has a cost. Where do we take it? We can't just go set it out and burn it, said Diaz. Oh, you could, but the entire city of Houston would be effed up. That's for sure.
Everyone's high.
Yeah. There's EPA rules. We can't do it ourselves. So it takes a holistic approach from every aspect of government, Diaz went on to say. Diaz described the rodent infestation as affecting only older cases from marijuana confiscated in the 80s and 90s, but its proximity to more recent evidence could pose a problem. Peter Stout, president and CEO of Houston Forensic Science Center, said that rat infestations are not uncommon in evidence rooms and pose a problem across thousands of police property rooms in the U.S. So if you want to party, find a rat because they know where all the good shit is. Just saying.
Clearly.
Well, if it's across thousands of property rooms in the U.S.,
I've got the wrong pets.
that's right. That's right. You got to find the ones that get into the areas. That's why I hang out with chipmunks.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's true.
They know.
You know stuff.
They know stuff. Rodents, bugs, fungus, all kinds of things love drugs, Stout said. I wonder if my chipmunks know where to find this shit. I'm just saying.
They probably do. They probably secretly. They're more secretive about it, though.
Indy and I are having a talk when he wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, go find Daddy the drugs over at the go find
I
Daddy.
thought you were going to say you're going to do the "this is your brain on drugs" talk with him.
Oh,
and
no.
crack an egg and fry it and be like, bad.
I'm going to show him pictures. See, go to the police department and find these in the property room. It is a challenge storing large quantity of drugs, said the cops. Then why do it?
Really? It would have to be cheaper to get rid of it.
Yeah, it has to be. Well, you could throw a huge fundraiser for the city. Just saying.
It's like a beer tent only with drugs.
There you go. Like a beer tent, but do it at the town festival.
There you go.
Yeah, instead of a beer tent, a drug den. Just saying. You've got it right there. You just do it on site. That's I know people are like, that's the worst idea ever, Tim.
So bad. We do not condone such behavior.
Well, we don't condone it, but I'm just saying, raise a lot of money for the municipality.
I mean, that's one way to do it for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. All right. Our next story is the most emailed story of the week. But I got to think, first of all, I got to thank our buddy Bijou out there in Las Vegas. I think Tom sent it in. I think a few other people sent it in. Our next story has to do, of course, it's from Florida.
Of course.
Of course. Has to do with a woman who mistakenly texted a cop and not her drug dealer. Oh, boy.
Oopsie doops.
Yes. Before heading off to drug rehab on New Year's Eve, yes, this poor woman, By the way, this is what she looks like here, Jess. She looks like she's ready for drug rehab.
She looks tired.
She does look tired.
Looks like she's had a long day.
It's like she's been through it, that's for sure. Octavia Wells allegedly decided to score some narcotics for the road. That's right, one last bump before we get thrown in for 30 days. So the 41-year-old Floridian texted her dealer that she had $45 to spend and wanted to buy a couple of points of fentanyl. Oh boy, she really wanted to check out, didn't she?
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is drug speak for the 1/10 of a gram increment or point that the narcotic is sold in. In her text, I bet you most people didn't know that. Did you know that fentanyl is
No.
sold in a point or 1/10?
No, I had no idea.
See, you learned something today.
I'm always learning stuff here, Tim.
So if someone says, hey, I want to buy a couple of points of fentanyl, you know now that it's sold in 1/10 of a gram or an increment or a point.
I just got smarter with drug lingo.
There you go. See?
I don't know how that's going to serve me, but gosh darn it.
Well, now if someone says to you, hey, you want a couple of points, you'd be like, hey, listen, I'm going to bust you now. I know what you're talking about.
Listen here, you naughty son of a bitch.
That's right. You just got so upset when you said that.
I'm going to go Karen on you right now.
That's right. There you go. I know what that is.
I'm calling your mother.
I'm calling your mother. I'm going to tag her on Facebook. In her texts, Wells identified herself as Octavia, so she gave herself up right away and arranged for the drug transaction. After Wells drove to meet her dealer at a Tom Thumb convenience store in Panama City. I thought we only had Tom Thumbs up here. I didn't know that they had them down in Florida. She was confronted by police and arrested. It was then that Octavia realized she had mistakenly contacted a cop and not a criminal. Oh my gosh, I'll give you one of these. Oh, wait. Oh, that's a turkey. I went to go, wah, 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 and I pulled up the turkey anyways. It's a turkey. She got the
works.
Yeah, that still works. Wells had been texting with Stephen Pettyjohn, an investigator with the Bay County Sheriff's Office, who is known as PJ Wells, or a PJ rather. I read both sentences together. Bad thing. So PJ is who she texted. Wells had saved the cop's number under his initials in her phone after a previous interaction with Pettyjohn that is not further described in a complaint affidavit. So wait, she's had a run-in with this cop once before, saved his number, but didn't say why.
Maybe they hooked up or something.
Ooh, maybe.
I mean, they're not describing what the incident was, so maybe it was like a situation.
Maybe she got him off and he got her off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, maybe it was a grinder thing. I don't know. I don't know what the people are finding each other on these days, but
right. The prior interaction was with the Sheriff's Special Investigation Division, which handles drug-related probes.
There was some probing going on.
Right. Pettyjohn. Ooh, there's a picture of Mr. Pettyjohn here. So the big bad Pettyjohn, if you know what I mean. There he is right there.
Oh, yeah.
So she has a type. Just nice.
Looks like it could probe someone.
Hey now.
Just saying.
Wells told cops that Pettyjohn's initials were similar to her drug dealers, which caused the mix-up. Wells, a cop noted, allowed me to look in her phone, and I confirmed that the phone was the same one that she was using to text Investigator Pettyjohn. A search of Wells's vehicle turned up a variety of drug paraphernalia, some of which tested positive for the presence of fentanyl. Whoops. Wells was charged with 1 felony and 2 misdemeanors and booked into the county jail. She was subsequently released from custody on $5,000 bond and is scheduled for a January 30th arraignment. That's going to interfere with treatment, I have a feeling.
I think so.
While on pretrial release, Wells has been ordered by a judge to not possess or consume alcohol or submit to random urinalysis tests. So she's going to have to stay clean anyway. So there you go. All right. It is time now for our Not Safe for Work portion of our program. It is a lengthy one. So strap yourselves in, kids. Strap the kids into somewhere else where they can't hear this program, and strap your boss into his office or her office, one or the other, and put your earbuds in because they're not going to want to hear about any of this. We're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go, Jess. Oh boy. I know today, and we dealt with the issue of sexual abuse. It's never funny, but we're going to try to make this as funny as we can. So here we go. An army doctor pleads guilty to sexually abusing dozens of soldiers. Yeah, I know. Jessica, ooh, how is this funny?
I'm only laughing because I'm uncomfortable, Tim.
Right. That's the kind of laughing that comes out of the story. An Army anesthesiologist pleaded guilty Tuesday to 41 charges of sexual misconduct involving dozens of patients at a Washington military medical facility in one of the largest sexual abuse investigations in the service's history. Major Michael Stockin faces a potential sentence of nearly 14 years in prison after pleading guilty to abusive sexual contact and indecent viewing of patients that he treated at Madigan Army Medical Center at Joint Base Lewis McChord between 2019 and 2022. Now, a military judge will hear victims testify this week and determine whether to accept the plea agreement that Stockin and his attorneys made with government prosecutors. Stockin admitted to 36 counts of abusive sexual contact and 5 counts of indecent viewing. Indecent viewing. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. I'm putting it together in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Said Michelle McCaskill, who is a spokeswoman for the U.S. Army and the Office of Special Trial Counsel. Stockin's court-martial trial, which began Tuesday, is expected to last until January 17th. Now, Stockin pleaded guilty as part of a plea deal with the government before this week's trial. I can confirm the prosecution team has been in regular contact with each victim and frequently hosts town hall meetings with the victims and their legal representatives, where all facets of the case are discussed to include terms of the agreement. McCaskill said all victims and their legal representatives were given the opportunity to provide input on the terms of the agreement. Now, many patients who later reported abuse allegations against Stockin were male soldiers seeking medical treatment for a variety of injuries requiring pain management.
And he's an anesthesiologist?
Yeah.
So he was putting them to sleep?
Yeah.
Huh.
The victims alleged that during what Stockin claimed were routine exams, he would grope them, focusing unnecessarily on their genital area, even when it was unrelated to the injury or pain for which they were sought treatment. That according to a separate federal civil lawsuit filed by alleged victims against the Army.
Yikes. They're like, Doc, I have a headache.
Yes. My knee, I blew out my knee. Well, here, let me grope your balls for a second and see if that affects your knee.
Oh, what a strange thing to do. Okay.
The lawsuit includes 21 victims, each seeking $5 million in damages from the government. That's over $100 million.
Dang.
For a guy who couldn't tell the difference between your ankle and your nuts.
Maybe he was just confused. Yeah, I missed that part of anatomy class.
That's a huge difference. That's like 2.5 feet.
They said it could hang down to his knee. I mean,
do your balls hang low? Do you swing them to and fro? I mean, that's all part of the song you sing in basic training, but
that's right. He was
come
just
on.
confused.
Jeez.
Or he was a freaking pervert.
There's that too.
I think it's B.
Yeah. Christine Dunn, an attorney representing the victims in the civil suit, said in a release Tuesday, not that kind of release, that Stockin was the only party responsible for the alleged abuse. That's it. Just the one guy.
Yeah, it's all him. He's the lone perv.
That's it. Just him. The story doesn't end here. According to Dunn, the Army played a substantial role in allowing the rampant sexual abuse to occur in the first place. The time has come for the Army to be held accountable for its negligence. So they're like, somebody brings it to somebody's attention. Hey, this guy over here, I went in because I stubbed my toe in basic. And he said, would you bend over and cough for me? And then he grabbed my cock. And I'm wondering what that has to do with my toe. Would you do something about it? And they're like, no, it's okay.
That's a problem. That's not good.
I don't get it.
I don't either. If you hear that, you just do something about it. Discipline, it's going to come out. Like all of these things always come out. So I don't understand trying to sweep them under the rug, pretend they never happened.
I yeah. I have
Yeah.
no words.
Yeah, it's bad.
Prosecutors previously referred, get this, Jess, 52 charges and specifications against Stockton, including 47 counts of abusive sexual contact and 5 for indecent viewing, for a total of 41 victims.
Wow.
It had to happen to 41 people before something happened.
That's crazy. Unacceptable.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
I mean, not literally nuts, but I mean,
Not the kind of nuts he was groping, but it is nuts.
it's nuts.
Not cool.
We go from grabbing one kind of meat to grabbing another, Jess. We're going to Costco in Naples, Florida. That's the best I could do for transitions. I'm sorry.
That's a great segue. Can't wait for this.
We go to Naples, Florida, where a Florida man knew the answer to the famous question, where's the beef? The correct response was in his shirt, along with fake membership cards and drugs. Abel Martin Cordova is accused of stealing more than $1,000 of meat from a Southwest Florida Costco and Sam's Club. Working with the loss prevention teams at the membership warehouse clubs, the Collier County Sheriff's Office said it was able to identify Cordova as a suspected meat thief. You have to see this man's picture.
What do you do with that much meat? Do you think he goes out and sells it out of his car or something? That's a lot of meat.
There's a lot of meat. I don't know.
You can't eat it all.
Although, have you seen the price of meat lately?
It's crazy. I mean,
like $1,000 in meat is,
yeah,
it's like maybe 100 pounds.
I'm not used to buying it because we usually get like a quarter of a cow for Christmas because I grew up on a farm and that's just what you do. But we didn't get it this year and I'm running out of hamburger and I had to buy some the other day and I was like, this is outrageous and it's not even good.
Yeah. Yeah. Like $6 a pound.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, you guys are all, I'm vegetarian for dietary reasons because I get sick from meat. I'm like, you're all going vegetarian.
Yeah.
Your broccoli.
Yeah, exactly. Hit them greens, kids. Yeah.
Pretend it tastes like chicken.
That's right. Impossible burgers for everybody for Christmas. Just saying. Law enforcement officers staked out the stores. Get it? Staked out the store.
Clever.
Eventually stopping him as he rode in a black SUV. Deputies said when they found he had more than $1,000 worth of meat on him, so to speak, along with multiple fake membership cards, marijuana, and fentanyl. God. So he
What is it with the fentanyl today?
No, by the way, this is what a guy who's high on marijuana and fentanyl and a bunch of meat looks like.
Oh, he looks really happy, but like he cannot really see me because his eyes are so squinted. Like he's just half asleep.
He is so high right now.
He's so happy. He's
Looks
just
like
the happiest man.
It's like one of those rats in the Houston Police Department. What he looks like. It's like, dude, I'm so high right now.
He's probably petting one in his lap right now.
He probably is. It's a nice rat, good rat. Cordova is facing multiple felony charges and is wanted in Broward County for similar crimes. So he's
a repeat meat thief.
Say that 10 times fast.
I can barely say it once.
Repeat meat thief, repeat meat thief. That is hard to say. Holy cow.
I'm surprised it came out right.
That writes itself. All right. This one is not safe for work because it deals with racial themes and a really bad word, which I'm not going to say because
don't you dare.
Don't I dare. I wouldn't.
It was nice doing the show with you, Tim.
Well, I have members of my family that would come and get me.
Yeah.
Louisiana Man stars in the latest installment of FAFO Chronicles. Do you know what the FAFO Chronicles are, Jess?
No, I don't.
It stands for fuck around and find out. That's what that stands for.
I'm going to start using that with my kids. I said it's bedtime.
Yeah, fuck around and find out, kid. It's a powerful statement. So in today's installment of the FAFO Chronicles, you can add insult to injury as, by the way, this guy right here definitely fafoed.
Oh, he has had a bad day.
Yeah, he is, doesn't he?
That one eye looks so swollen and purple.
Yep.
And there's blood dripping down his face.
Yes, there is, my dear. And I'm about to tell you why he FAFO'd or fafoed. And he did the ultimate sin. We'll just put it that way.
You think he deserved that? What he looks like, he earned it.
He definitely earned it.
Okay, I might like this story then.
A Louisiana man was walloped in the face after he shouted racial slurs at a group of black victims and declared, "I hate N-words,"
Oh,
according to a police report.
well, I think he got what he deserved, Tim.
Fucked around and found out. That he did. Officers arrested 51-year-old Clint Ferguson following a confrontation Sunday night in the parking lot of the Shoe Show in Monroe, Louisiana. According to the victims, who are black, they were sitting in their car when Ferguson pulled up next to them, exited his ride, and began shouting racial slurs at the driver. A probable cause statement alleges. I think it does more than allege. I think it probably hit it on the head. After declaring that "I hate," Ferguson returned to his car and then tried to drive away. I bet he didn't get very far because the picture pretty much proves it.
Yep, he got his ass handed to him.
That's right. His path, however, was blocked by the driver, who had called 911 and told Ferguson, "You are going to wait for the police, and you want a prize while you wait for the police." I put that second part in there. Ferguson, cops allege, drove around the victim and ran over the victim's foot. Oh, bad move.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Victim then punched Ferguson through the open driver window as Ferguson drove away.
Nice shot.
That is one powerful punch.
Yeah.
Especially if you got him to stop. We're looking at the picture, and if you're looking at the video, you saw the picture of Ferguson with a fresh shiner. He later returned to the parking lot. I don't know why, but refused police orders to exit his car. 3 officers eventually pulled Ferguson from the vehicle and handcuffed him. He was charged with aggravated battery, a felony, and misdemeanor hate crimes, and resisting an officer counts. Maybe he came back for more. After Ferguson was treated at a local hospital for his eye and nose where the victim hit him, he was booked into the county jail where he remains locked up in lieu of $50,000 bond. Maybe he thought he was going to get the guy back. I have no idea, but no, he got clocked.
Yeah, he deserved it too.
Yeah, he did. So
well earned.
Well earned. Well, indeed. We move on. This next one, now, you know, whenever you go and see a magician perform, there's a bit of an illusion and there's a bit of sleight of hand and there's a bit of misdirection. So I could say, watch this hand here, and I could be doing something over here, right, Jess? So if I follow my hand here, and I'm about to make something appear, I could be doing something with my left hand. So my right hand is moving here, but I'm doing something with my left hand, right? Well, at a Family Dollar store in Florida, a woman did a hell of a magic trick while another person stole $500 worth of cleaning products. What this woman did, however, was quite the magic trick.
I feel like it's going to involve exposing parts of her body.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
While the one man made $500 worth of cleaning products disappear, she made her waste products appear.
No.
Yeah.
She did it like a dookie on the floor?
Yes.
Oh, come on.
He shat all over the floor of the Family Dollar store.
Oh.
We go to Mulberry, Florida, where a man and woman who Polk County deputies are calling Mr. Clean and Ms. Dookie are on the run after a messy burglary at a Mulberry Family Dollar store.
That's your plan.
That's your plan. Honey, I got an idea. We need to clean the house, but we're going to do it in a dirty fashion. Okay, now.
Be like, no, Tim, you're going to take the dump on the floor. I'll steal the supplies.
See, I've been bound up for a couple of days, and honey, I know you took the Dulcolac. So here's the deal. I need you to shit on the floor. I'm going to grab the stuff. All right?
And really, how do you do that on command? Like, if you told me I had to poop in the middle of the store, I'd be like, I can't.
Milk of
Even
magnesia.
if I had to, I think I'd have stage fright.
Milk of magnesia, Jess. You do it half an hour before, you will dump as much as you want. You may not stop.
Maybe not. That'd be a problem.
Yeah. You'll go.
These criminals are disgusting tonight.
I know, right? According to the Polk County Sheriff's Office, a man and a woman walked into the Family Dollar store on Bailey Road last month and played a very different role in a $500 retail heist. Deputies say the man walked around the store. Pardon me. Deputies say the man walked around the store, gathering nearly $500 worth of items like Gain, Tide, and Clorox products. But it wasn't to clean up what was about to happen.
I'm like, that's ironic because they're going to steal cleaning stuff, but leave one hell of a mess behind.
That's right. Before I go any further, here are their pictures from the camera in the store. So you get a visual of what we're about to walk into. I mean, not literally walk into because it would be all over the floor.
I hope not, but I kind of love them. They look like a party.
They do look like a party, don't they? They look like they're fun. While he was gathering the cleaning supplies, Jess, deputies say a woman distracted employees by using the store's floor as her restroom. Da, 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 da. She probably went, want to see a magic trick? Ta-da! I'm about to make something appear. Deputies noted, if you were a cashier at the Family Dollar and you're doing your thing and you're ringing up, I don't know, dollar Skittles or whatever it is you're ringing up, and someone comes up and goes, da, 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 want to see a magic trick? Do you say yes?
I would say, probably, because I do like magic tricks, and then I would regret it so much.
And you're like, I'm not cleaning that shit up. I mean, literally, I'm not
literally
cleaning it up. I don't know. Deputies noted that an employee had to clean up the mess that she made. So yes, you are cleaning that shit up after the magic trick.
Nope, I quit.
I quit. You just call the manager, come on in early, because I ain't cleaning that shit out. The couple left the store in a white van. It figures. Why does that figure? In a post on social media, the sheriff's office stated, if you recognize Mr. Clean or Ms. Dookie, or you have information regarding the investigation, you're to contact Detective Hannon at 863-499-2400 or rhannon@polksheriff.org.
So the criminals are on the loose.
One of them's really loose. You know what I mean? And you suppose they stopped off for dinner afterwards at Denny's and went, da, 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 I want to see a magic trick.
And then they dined and dashed. Yep, I think so.
Yep.
They're just leaving a poop trail everywhere they go.
Oh. What if they went for Mexican?
Oh. What if they ate corn, Tim?
Oh. Yes.
Ew.
Ew.
Why? Why did I say that? Now it's in my brain.
You suppose she turned around and went, I didn't eat that last night. Oh, by the way, tipsters who want to remain anonymous over the Dookie Duo can contact, I gave him that nickname, can contact Heartland Crime Stoppers at 888-400-8477, dialing tips, not shits, tips for a cell phone, downloading the free P3 Tips app on your smartphone or tablet, or visiting heartlandcrimestoppers.com. Evidently, they really want to get a hold of these slippery characters, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
Just saying. Okay, we move on. We move on. We move on. Okay. I believe I have audio of this next story. This next story, by the way, was sent to me by one or two of our lovely audience members because it was so funny. And it really is funny. But here's the thing. Now, see, when some of us get arrested, Jess, I shouldn't say when some of us get arrested or pulled over. Again, we had a story similar to this earlier where, you try to talk your way out of a ticket. There was the guy, the Shaquille O'Neal guy, Shaquille O'Neal's my cousin. And, we try to talk fast, talk smart. Hey, oh no, you don't want to give me a ticket, right? But some people go a little far, right? And the whole idea here is that, you want to be nice to an officer, but you don't want to be overly nice, right? I mean, at least that's the theory.
Right. You don't want to be inappropriately nice.
Right. Because that can get you in trouble as well. Well, as it turns out, there's one woman who took it a little too far. Police in Sarasota said a woman tried to flirt her way out of a DUI arrest, and it was all captured in body camera footage. Officers said 22-year-old Sophia Ross was pulled over in November after stopping at green lights and striking several curbs. Her interaction with the Sarasota police officer was captured on body camera. Police say that Ross was moving slowly. She was slurring her words and acting lethargic after she got out of her vehicle. According to a report, Ross admitted to the officer that she'd been drinking at a bar before she was pulled over. Police said Ross was acting unusually and attempted to kiss the officer during her traffic stop. She was arrested and charged with DUI, according to the report. There were some other things in that video as well. She called the officer daddy. That was one of the things she did. She's in a Hooters t-shirt, and she had pulled her Hooters t-shirt down. The officer was actually very composed. I was kind of hoping we had the actual video. But I tell you what, I'll post this so that you can watch the actual video from this, and you can see exactly how she was behaving. It's actually kind of funny, but in the end, the cop ends up keeping his composure, but he never quite loses it throughout, probably because of the body cam. But had the body cam not been there, you wonder if he would have stayed as composed as he did. All right, our next story, and we're getting close to the end here. We've got just a few stories left. This cop did not stay composed, Jess. This cop ended up watching porn at the time of a crash. So it might have been the porn that caused the crash.
Yeah, I think maybe 1 + 1 = 2.
That's right. We're staying in Florida. A lot of Florida stories this week. I don't know what it is, but Florida ends up being
It's Florida, Tim. That's what it is.
Florida. A Florida cop was watching pornography on his phone when he slammed his patrol car into a vehicle stopped ahead of him. That, according to an internal affairs report that accused the deputy of initially lying about the accident. The 1:45 p.m. crash occurred 2 months ago at a Lake County intersection and prompted the cop to resign his post in the midst of the Office of Professional Standards review. 28-year-old Tristan McComber initially offered various explanations for his distracted driving. He claimed to have been on the phone with another officer at the time of the crash and contended that the squad car had mechanical issues. He would go on to claim that he had been exchanging texts with fellow officers. Right, texts with fellow officers, sure. However, investigators reviewed dash cam and body-worn footage that contradicted the deputy's story. The video recorded the cruiser's steering wheel airbag deploying and McComber telling the 63-year-old female motorist whose Toyota Corolla he hit, "My brakes locked up." A Florida Highway Patrol report prepared at the time of the November 6th crash stated that McComber was inattentive and drove in a careless or negligent manner. The report estimated the damage to the police vehicle at $10,000, while damages to the 2023 Toyota were calculated at around $5,000. McComber eventually admitted that he was on the phone looking at inappropriate pictures which he further described as pornographic material like boobs or whatnot. That's pretty generic, like boobs or whatnot.
Or whatnot.
Or whatnot. An investigator added, McComber stated he was looking at images that contained nudity. Contained. I know English. It's good for me. As for why he said that the car had a defective anti-lock braking system, McComber admitted that that claim was more of a deflection rather than a genuine reason for the vehicle crash. McComber's hesitancy to admit the pornography viewing, he said, was lying by omission. Lying by omission. Okay.
I'm confused, but okay.
It's double speak, I guess, to try and, cover stuff up. The Internal Affairs probe found that McComber was in violation of several professional standards, including departure from the truth and the prohibited use of an electronic device. McComber, who became a Lake County deputy sheriff in 2021, has not been charged with a crime. So wait a minute. So he destroys public property. He gets into an accident. Technically, it's vehicular assault.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get charged with a crime?
He definitely should have.
Yeah. Okay. This next one, Jess, you're definitely going to need a palate cleanser afterwards. So I've prepared such a one. This is creepy.
Bracing myself.
Although it does have a big tinge of funny here. And an impression.
I love your impressions. They're my favorite.
I have to get ready for this. So I need a sip of something. All right. A home inspector who committed an unspeakable act with a Tickle Me Elmo doll in a children's bedroom is busted yet again. You heard me right, folks. This is our final story of the day. A perverted Michigan home inspector who was caught on camera pleasuring himself with a Tickle Me Elmo doll has been busted for violating his probation.
Why, God, why?
Just the look on your face, Jess, is it says it all. It's just, oh God. Really? You have that look like, did you search this one out? Like, did you put that in a search engine and come up with
like, how does this even happen?
62-year-old Kevin Wayne Van Leuven, as opposed to Van Leeuwen, of Clarkston, Oakland County, was found guilty of aggravated indecent exposure and sentenced to 19 days behind bars in October of 2022, following the unspeakable act he committed in a young boy's bedroom. But he was convinced yet again in January of 2024 for violating his probation, according to court records. In March of 2021, now Jada Dodson, now 26, hired Van Leuven to inspect her Oxford Township home ahead of a property sale. While Dodson and the rest of the family were away from the residence, leaving the inspector to perform his job alone, her phone alerted her of movement in the nursery. That's never a good thing. Movement in the nursery. No. While Dodson and the rest of the family were away from the residence, leaving the inspector to perform his job alone, her phone alerted her of that movement. Thinking nothing of it, she opened her phone to check on the progress of the inspection through a nanny cam installed inside the home. Are you ready for this, Jess?
Yes.
What she saw inside was horrifying. First of all, let me show you a picture of Mr. Van Leuven. This is Mr. Van Leuven right here. Okay.
I feel bad. His forehead is as big as the rest of his face.
Oh, he's got a 7 head. Look at him. I mean, yeah. You could.
That's beside the point.
You could land airplanes on his forehead.
Yeah.
Dodson told police that what she saw instead was horrifying on that nanny cam.
I don't even want to think about what she saw. It involves an Elmo doll and that guy pleasuring himself with it. How do you pleasure yourself with an Elmo doll, Tim?
Oh,
don't answer.
Just jumping right over the punchline, Jess.
All right.
I'm building suspense. You're jumping to the jumping to the end here.
My brain is just trying to wrap around all of this.
Dodson told police that she saw Van Leuven begin touching himself before picking up her 2-year-old son's Tickle Me Elmo doll and using it to pleasure himself. We're building suspense here, Jess. Building suspense. Let's build that suspense, Jess, by showing you another picture. Here's Mr. Van Leuven entering the nursery.
Oh, gosh. Is he coming or going?
At this point, he's entering.
Okay.
How's that for use of adjective?
Good choice of words.
Entering. At this point, oh wait, there's another picture here. He snatched Elmo.
Why? Why are you? Okay. Oh, poor Elmo.
At this point, he's absconded Elmo.
Oh my goodness. I wonder what's going through his mind right now. He's like, I've got Elmo in my hands. I'm so excited for this. He's so soft and plush.
Goddamn Elmo. Yeah. Maybe that is.
And Elmo's like,
go ahead, do the impression.
that's all I got. Just know.
All you got?
It's a really high pitched.
Oh, no. Elmo says no speaking to the microphone.
No.
Elmo says hello. Elmo says hug. Elmo says
yeah, no, I don't know. Something like that. I just went blank, Dodson told WDIV 2021. My husband was staring at me from across the room and was like, "What's wrong?" and asked me repeatedly, and I couldn't even articulate what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Elmo tell you what I was seeing. First, I was seeing Mr. Van Leuven. Mr. Van Leuven said, Elmo, guess what? Mr. Van Leuven is taking a look around the room. Mr. Van Leuven is doing an inspection. Elmo said, okay, Mr. Van Leuven, when you're done with Mr. Van Leuven's inspection, Mr. Elmo would like to leave this room alone. Mr. Van Leuven said no. Mr. Van Leuven wants playtime. Elmo said no. Elmo doesn't want to play with Mr. Van Leuven because Mr. Van Leuven likes to play without pants.
Without pants.
Yeah. Van Leuven was captured on video positioning himself within the doorway of Dodson's 2-year-old son's closet, facing away from the camera and committing the disturbing act. He was then captured zipping up his pants and placing the Elmo doll on the other side of the room, all while it was heard emitting a pre-recorded laugh.
Oh, he's embarrassed. Elmo is shamed. Elmo doesn't know this guilty feeling Elmo has. Elmo needs therapy.
Just saying. Yeah.
Oh, so sad. Poor Elmo.
After placing the red Sesame Street toy back in the original spot, Van Leuven stood up while breathing hard and appeared to be briefly making eye contact with the camera before continuing the inspection.
Oh my gosh.
Here's what Dodson told WDIV in 2021. What if he had an STD and our son played with that? What if we didn't know? Oh, God. She took it one step further, Jess. We have a toddler and a newborn baby, too.
You put everything in their mouth, Tim.
Oh. There's nothing worse than when somebody comes to your home and you trust them to do a job. And boy, did they ever do a job. And they go do something like that in your child's bedroom. Disgusted and shocked by what she was seeing, Dodson immediately called 911 and kept the footage handy for authorities. Nobody in their right mind does things like that, Dodson added. Van Leuven initially denied the allegation, telling police he had moved the doll to inspect an electrical outlet.
That was a shock to Elmo, let me tell you. It was a big shock because it was right in Elmo's face and he couldn't get it away.
When officers explained that there was a hidden camera showing him taking the doll toward the closet and committing the vile act, Van Leuven apologized and admitted to what he had done. He was taken into custody on charges of aggravated indecent exposure and malicious destruction of property under $200 in 2021 and with a $2,500 surety bond on the charges. Aggravated indecent exposure carries a maximum 2-year jail sentence as well as a $2,000 fine. Malicious destruction of property carries up to 93 days in jail with a $500 fine. Now, a judge also ordered the inspector to undergo a mental health evaluation, probably warranted. Certain conditions were also set for Van Leuven. He was ordered to have no contact with the victims and banned from being alone in residential property he does not own himself. Despite making headlines at the time, Van Leuven had only a 1-day trial in October of 2022. Oakland County Judge Phyllis McMillan ordered Van Leuven to serve 19 days behind bars with 19 days of jail credit, along with an 18-month probation period once released. Relatively little sentence. I mean, there's nothing much to it. He was also ordered to continue the mental health treatment he'd received until a therapist clinically discharged him. A jury found that since there was no proof in the form of DNA discovered on the Elmo doll, yeah, I went there, that he could not be charged with destruction of property. So because Elmo didn't have a frothy mouth, there was not proof.
What about the video?
I know the video is probably plenty of proof.
I mean, okay.
I know. During his sentencing, Van Leuven apologized to the homeowners who have since sold their property. I would have burned it to the ground. That's just me at that point. To the family, it's difficult to express how sincerely sorry I am for the trauma and violation, he went on to say, and the disgust they have felt. He said in a statement, not a day passes that I don't feel remorse and regret for my criminal activity on that day. Of his arrest, Sheriff Michael Bouchard said, just when I think I've seen it all, someone steps up and surprises me with a new level of disturbing actions. Sadly, in today's world, we cannot take it on faith that the people we let into our homes can be trusted. He says it's a disgusting reminder to be cautious about who you let into your home. These actions of these homeowners will likely prevent the defendant from going into anyone else's home. They say now it's unclear how he violated his probation, but he has. So keep that in mind. He went through all the motions. He said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use my member as a dental tool on Elmo, but yet he violated his probation, Jess.
Which tells you he's at it again.
When asked for a comment, Elmo had this to say.
Elmo doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
Elmo feels violated.
Elmo was violated.
Yeah. Elmo needs a hug. Not from that guy, but Elmo needs a hug.
Elmo needs a shower first.
Yeah, a deep, deep shower. One that's scrubbing and full of hot water. One that would typically take Elmo's fur right off.
I was going to say, and gasoline in a match.
Gasoline in a match. Mm-hmm. Disturbing.
Very.
Yeah.
I like doing the show with Elmo, though. He's kind of cute.
Ever since then, Zoe won't touch Elmo. Nope. Zoe won't have anything to do with Elmo. Nope.
That's because Elmo's dirty.
I say, Zoe, just hug me. Just hold me. Nope. Zoe says, no, you've been violated by the Van Leuven guy. No. I can't think of you the same way. I say, but Zoe, Elmo's heart belongs to Zoe.
Yeah. It's not Elmo's fault.
He says, why don't you go get some of that Big Bird? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Anyhow. That's
yeah. Thanks for leaving us on that. You're gonna cleanse our palate, right? Though?
Yeah, we need a palate cleanser, don't we?
Ew.
I've come up with this. Boy, that was disturbing, wasn't it? Sounds like Elmo needs therapy. Just saying. So here's your palate cleanser for today, Jess. Dear God. Elmo does need therapy. Here's your palate cleanser for today. It turns out that kids just aren't the same anymore. It turns out maybe all kids need therapy. As a young grandmother out there in this takes place in England, so maybe the kids in the U.S. are all right, but the kids in England are disturbed.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so.
Why?
So.
What's up?
Well, it turns out that an elderly lady was out on a nice walk with her grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to show them the sights, the nice winter sights, the nice holiday sights, and say, see, this is where grandma grew up. This is where grandma had her first experience doing something over here. I don't know, whatever it was she was talking about.
This is where grandma had her first sexual experience.
Yeah, with Elmo. No, but I don't know. Just whatever it was. Your grandma had her first drink over here. She had her first cig over here. I know they call it something else in England. But, whatever it was, she was pointing out to the kids. Well, a local absolutely was disgusted after spotting an obscene snowman on a walk with her grandchildren.
Oh, no.
Well, it's true, Jess. The kids are not all right. As the record cover would say, the kids are all right. Well, they're not. The 7-foot tall figure was spotted in Grappenhall, Cheshire, and it's evoked some strong reactions from locals, with some going as far as to say they're disgusted. Sign of the times, Jess. I believe that's I think that's what Prince said. Sign of the times. A snowman with a rather cheeky ice feature has caused quite a stir in the village. Some locals absolutely disgusted by the display. The rude creation appeared on Grapple Hall Sports Club's rugby pitch near Warrington, Cheshire. That's right. It's out there in the field. Well, they're not using it anyways the time of year.
It's true.
And it appeared suddenly overnight. Maybe it was the rugby players that built it. Who knows?
It's probably a drunk dad or something. Probably wasn't a kid at all. It was probably a bunch of moms who were bored and
just like, hey, you know what? Make sure the balls are perfectly shaped. Locals noticed the snowman had very bold snowballs, in quotes, attached close to its groin area.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. But the snowman, which measures at 7 feet, has sparked a mixed reaction from locals. One resident who asked not to be named said he was on a walk with his grandchildren when he spotted the impressive snowman. That's in quotes, the impressive snowman.
Impressive.
Yeah. But as he got closer, he realized that he could see very realistic looking genitalia.
I'm telling you, this was not children. It was 40-something-year-old moms having their girls' night, drinking their wine.
That snowman is not Frosty at all. Look at him standing at attention. Take a look. He said, I was walking on the rugby pitch when I saw the snowman from a distance because it is rather large. I thought I'd take a closer look at it as it looked impressive. As I got closer to admire it, I saw that they had given it very realistic looking genitalia. And that's when I thought I ought to take some photos and report it to save anyone else from getting the same shock that I did. Right. That's why you're taking the photos.
I would just remove the offensive appendages. It's not that hard.
Listen to you, Rabbi.
Knock them off.
You're over there performing a bris. Absolutely disgusted with this, said the person. Took the grandchildren on a snowy walk and don't want to have to see things like this. However, others have seen the funny side of it, Jess. One commenter told the offended residents, you should have gone over and pulled it off, just like Jess said. Go over and give it a good tug.
There you go. Get rid of it.
Or 15 or 20. Just keep tugging it. I don't. Another said, this is brilliant. Congratulations to whoever made this regular looking snowman and celebrity. Does he have an OnlyFans? By the way, in case you're wondering what this blurred out version of this snowman looks like, he is rather impressive if he can see through the blur.
Oh, I can. That is, yeah. And he looks alert.
He is at attention.
He's excited.
He's really happy to be there.
Oh, I don't think I could get mad about that. I'd be laughing too much.
One person mocked the appearance of more than one tackle on the rugby pitch, get it, that morning, adding, is this Grappenhall rugby field. I was running along the canal and could see the tackle from a good distance away. Great effort. Made me chuckle. Grappenhall Sports Club condemned the display and said, snowmen with their bits hanging out is not really what we want to be known for.
That's the greatest.
You know what? I think because we're recording on Monday night, I think should the Vikings shit the bed tonight, I think they ought to have a snowman right in the middle of U.S. Bank Stadium with their bits hanging out.
With the bits hanging out. Mm-hmm.
A little bit of shit on the field saying we shit the bed. Where's Mr. Clean and Ms. Dookie when we need them? That's what it should say.
Yeah, I agree. That's not going to happen, Tim. They're going to win.
They're going to win?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this airs Tuesday, so if your prediction's wrong.
I'm having the faith.
Having the faith. Well, I'm hoping. That's all I could say. I'm hoping. Oh boy. Okay, so that'll do it for that. All right, so you've got 3 books out there, Jess. 3. Count them. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And so people can get them currently at your website. What else you got going on in the wonderful world of Jessica Freeburg?
I mean, that's kind of it. Just if you want to buy a book, buy a book. If you get a book, you read it, you like it, leave it a review. Reviews are really important for books on Amazon. So I would always take a nice 5-star review, or an honest review.
There you go. There you go. We have a link in the description.
And only if you like it.
No, I see. Even if you don't, leave a 5-star review. Absolutely. It's well.
Yeah. Otherwise, we don't have a lot going on right now. It's kind of quiet. I've got the kids home for break still, so I'm just enjoying them and trying to meet my book deadlines because I've got 5 more books coming out next fall.
Holy cow! 5 more books?
Tim, yes.
Are you writing about an Elmo that comes to life and regret, or what? What?
I am now.
You are now. That's now a book. That's number 6. Good God.
Elmo's alive and happy. What the fuck is that?
It's just think about it. Just think about it. It's book number 6. It's called Elmo's Great Regret. You can call it. Yeah, it'll be a great book. I shouldn't even joke about that because I do want to talk about the book that was on today, Obsessed, which actually is that's a horrible segue. It's a horrible transition.
All of them this episode, though.
What's that?
This is the episode of horrible segues.
Episode of horrible segues. David McGrath, by the way, has written a wonderful book, Obsessed, A Survivor's Quest to Find Justice for the Lost Boys of New England. We have a link to that in the description of this program. We do want you to seriously go get that book and check out that book. And David was a wonderful guest today. I want you to go get that book. We were joking about Elmo, that funny stuff, but the stuff with Obsessed is not funny in that.
Yeah.
That is serious stuff, and we do encourage you to get that book and keep your children aware. Keep your children aware because there are some sickos out there, and you need to be aware as parents as to what's out there. So there you go. So I want to thank David so much for being on the program because he's actually been fighting through some serious illnesses to be with us. No. He was supposed to be with us last week and managed to get through it to get to us this week. So there you go. All right. Tomorrow, supernatural news. And then Thursday, here's your clue. A former guest that's been with us once is back with us again. His world surrounds paranormal investigation and puppies.
Oh.
All right. So we'll have him back Thursday. And we'll be talking about some interesting stuff. We'll be talking about some investigations. We'll be talking maybe about some future events.
Fun.
There you go. So that's coming up on Thursday, right here on the big program. So for Jessica Freeburg, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for joining us today for the best in true crime podcasting. This has been True Crime Tuesday.
For more audio and video archives of True Crime Tuesday, intriguing content, and cool swag, please visit darknessradioshow.com. Thank you for watching. And join us tomorrow for Supernatural News with Mally Fox.